Welcome to Electrify, the video show and podcast for electricians only, with your hosts Paul Abernathy and Jay, the Basement King Grundberg. Sit back and enjoy the show. What up, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of Electrify, again, as we continue in the residential wiring commentary series. With me, as always, my co-host, and on our Thursday night, but he's also special co-hosting me along with this residential wiring series. It's the Basement King himself, a specialist in the residential world, Mr. Grundberg, all the way from Colorado. Mr. Grundberg, thanks for joining me again, as always.
What up, what up? Thanks for having me. I know I missed the last episode.
Yeah, but you're back. You're back. You're back to join us. So welcome again, everybody, as we're going to continue our journey into the residential wiring commentary series. I think we're at part 6 now, Jay. And so we're gonna get into it, everybody. Again, it's just kind of part of that Fast Tracks Red, where it's the residential. For those this morning that attended my live stream, that I explained the Fast Tracks Red system in detail. I told you we'd be coming here with the part 6 commentary today. So that's where we're at. We're at part 6 of the commentary. So without further ado, I guess let's go on and get into it to be good stewards of everybody's time during this series. So we're going to just jump right into it. Okay. Well, we're here. We have our familiar electrician. He is ready now. I guess he's worked his way up, Jay. And he's going to start doing the wiring. As you see, there looks like some nice clean studs there. And he's going to start installing, I think in this episode, he's going to do some of the bedrooms and he's going to do the hallway bathroom. That's what we got today. All right. And I will all mention, you notice Jay's new schwanky headphones. Okay. You know, doesn't have the stickers on them like, you know, but now these are outdated because it says Electrician Live. So again, he could just make a crack and say, at least his stuff's new. I've got the outdated stuff. So, you know. So, we got a chatter from some other country in here, Jay, as we always do. So, guess what we do to that? Well, we will definitely bang that person here in a second once we get everything rolling on here. All right. So let's go on and get into our commentary. I don't even know what language that is, by the way. So we're going to start looking at the applications of the wiring of the brand circuits for bedrooms and I guess hallway bath in this episode. So we will get all on that and let's go on and get it started. So we've got our headphones on and we will get into it. Hopefully you can hear it as well and we will get our commentary. All right. Chris says it's Russian probably. Yeah, it is. I guess we have our traffic in Russia, if not whatnot. So don't worry, I will see that user gets banned. All right, let's move on into our commentary. All right, let's get started.
We're going to start pulling circuits and we're going to complete the circuits as we go.
Okay.
We're not going to do any.
All right, so I'm not sure, Jay, if you could hear that. We want to make sure everybody could hear it and everything like that. I want to make sure that I can hear it as well. So let me make sure that I fix the output because I cannot hear it. And again, doing this all at the last minute, it's typical that I would screw something up. And I did not want to screw anything up for this episode. But rushing like I was, I've obviously screwed it up. So that takes a nice clean episode and now turns it to crap. But we will try to fix this on the fly here.
You can blame that on the Basement King himself.
Yeah, that's right.
Darn him.
I know, right? It's all his fault.
No, it does look like he's about to do some home runs. think last time he was, or some branch circuits, it seemed like last time he was running the home runs out to the field, I think, on the one that you were on last time. And so
Yeah.
here it'll be interesting to see. Oh, there's audio feedback. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure. So, all right. So let's go on and see here. Let me make sure I've got everything set up. Okay. Let me go on and get in it here real quick, and we see where we go. Let's go.
Stapling right now, just because that's not the way I do things. I think it looks better to staple after all the wires in the house. It looks a lot neater. It looks cleaner that way. Doing one job at a time gets you in the motion of constantly doing it. So when I'm stapling, after a while of doing it, you're constantly pulling out staples. You get easier at doing it, and it goes up a lot easier. I have my 14.2 set up here, and I have 14.3 already pulled out a little bit. It's just how I'm going to pull the circuits for these next videos. I'm going to walk you through each episode for different rooms, and then when we get to the 12.2, I'm going to do that in a big lump sum. Today we're going to work on one of the easiest circuits to pull with the 14.2, and that's going to be bedroom 2 and bedroom 3 with the hall bath, and sometimes it's the hall. But the difference between the 14.2 and the 14.3, they're basically identical, except the 14.3 has a red wire in there. It has an extra wire, and what we mainly use this for is smoke detectors, 3-ways, and anything we need 2 switch legs for, like a fan light in a bedroom or a family room, or a fan light, fart fan and light combo in a water closet in the master bedroom. This is where I'm going to wire right here. This is bedroom 2 and bedroom 3. And here's the bathroom. I always pull the power wires first. I make sure I get power to everything, and then I go back and I pull the switch legs. I do it box to box, just because I don't want to get confused. I've been doing this for a long time, and I know how to avoid the confusion. I don't want to, yeah, it's just the right way to do it. You don't want.
All right, so Jay, the one thing I can think about is anybody out there who has been watching this series will know that we've commented on the other ones where he did the home runs, and then we were like, the way he said it and the way he did it, it looked like he did the branch circuits first and then he pulled the home runs, and we know that wasn't the case. But he kind of did his videos out of sequence, if you will. But he did explain it there. You always want to pull that home run, determine your circuit layout by where your home run's going to be. And that way, you know, and you mark it. That way, if you start laying out your branch around the room, that you know your home run has been run, and you can try to tie everything back. The worst nightmare for an electrician is to leave something that is dead, right? Dead end. That is something that actually on the end that's not going to have power to it after it gets gypsumed and everything gets closed in. You're like, what the crap? You know, that sucks. So he was just clarifying. He does take his home runs. He identifies where it's going to go. He understands. In his case, he's doing 2 bedrooms. So people ask us that all the time. Can you do 2 bedrooms on it? And the answer is absolutely. You can do 2 bedrooms. Again, residential, there's no limit to the number of receptacles, for example, that you can put on it, but we want to be practical about it. You know, so he's putting these 2 on. It looks like a small spec home, really, you know, and so he's done enough of these probably that he knows to be the 2, he can do 2 bedrooms on 1 circuit. It's fine. Any thoughts, Jay, on this as well? Everything look okay so far?
Yeah, so far so good. I mean, he taking the 14.3 and kind of reeling it off. I don't know how he did it, but it looked like he kind of reeled it off beforehand, where I'd probably put that on a spinner. That way you're not continuously going back to it and, you know, kind of reeling more off if you need it. That's the only thing I would do different.
Yeah, and I think he does in a previous the video when he did the home runs. For those, that was episode 5. Go back and watch that. He did have a spinner. And, of course, I would continue on with that spinner even though you're doing the branch circuits and stuff like that. You know, it just keeps the wire coming out, you know, fine. And you know, the 250-foot spools or reels, it can come out from the middle. It can come out with the memory, and it can, look, so you have to spend all that time. If you go from the outer and you put it on a spinner, then you can just do it. And I used to have the spinners that would hook on the studs. Okay, it just looks like a flat thing with a hook on it. You hook it on the studs, and it would set the 250-foot roll on it, and it would spin off. And when I had the 1,000-footers, I would simply put on a reel, and I had jacks, and it would just spin off the reel. Now they got all kinds of fancy spinning reels and all that type of thing. But that's how we would do it. And so also he did explain his 14.3 and 14.2. 3-ways, 4-way applications, obviously the 14.3. He talked about the smoke alarms. He called smoke detectors, but in a residence, there's smoke alarms governed by NFPA 72, as well as Section 314 of the International Residential Code. That's an ICC code. Covers the placements and all this kind of stuff and the rules of what you got to have in bedrooms or sleeping areas and immediately adjacent and in per floor. And if you have a habitable attic, you have to have one there. If it's a typical attic, no. Habitable attic, yes. Definitions of that are all in the IRC for those that are interested in the International Residential Code. You can check that out. Other than that, so far, so good. And there's a lot of noise on his site, but it looks fairly clean. So it tells you that he's in there before the other trades. So again, it's always one of those things, Jay. Does it make you nervous when you put your wiring in and the plumbers hadn't come in yet, or the duct guys, and mechanical hadn't come in yet? Does that pucker you up any, knowing that they'll just move whatever they need to go to get their stuff in?
Yeah, just to think about that, because it's for me, it's simpler just to move my cable around plumbing or ducting or going to different bays. Whereas then if their ducting needs to go in a certain bay and our cables are in that bay, then a lot of times the guys will either pull it down too hard or kind of just cut it
right
out of the way or move it. So again, I prefer to go in after the plumbing and the mechanical's done.
Yeah, see, over in our chat, Weston says, you almost always go in last. I like to go in last. I like to go when everybody else's stuff is in. So yeah, because their stuff is more fixed than ours, and we can work around it. But the reason I do it is because I don't need them cutting my crap. I don't need them saying, well, the electric, because you know what? They might have good intentions. Oh, we'll let the electrician know. And then all of a sudden, they don't let the electrician know. and you go start putting stuff in, and guess what? You get a whole dead circuit, and you're like, what the, So yeah, I like to know. I like to be in last, that's for sure.
I'm going to go through and pull all the easy stuff and then go do the hard stuff. So you just want to break it up and do it as it comes to you. So I got my home run here. I kind of got it in the wrong slot. So fix that.
My bad.
It doesn't matter what slot you have.
Must have run out of power on his recording.
For stapling purposes, whenever I go to put this wire in right here, I don't want to get my wires crossed up. I like to staple flat and I like to staple clean, and that's part of the reason why I staple at the end of the case. So I've already got this all drilled out, ready to fire, and I'm just going to go ahead and start with it.
Yeah, I guess he got rid of the hard hat because it's hot, He's the only one in there, so you don't need a hard hat. It's residential anyway. I bet you 98% of people don't wear a hard hat in residential. But yeah, I don't know what he did with his other one.
Because it's going to go through the wall a lot nicer, a lot smoother, and a lot less resistance. And also it looks a lot nicer. Like, you don't want to end up like trying to go through a bunch of holes while it's still on the wheel. So anyways, I'm starting right here in bedroom 3.
Of course, Jay, with all that banging going on, it seems like they're probably doing the roof and putting up shingles. So maybe he should have his hard hat on. Who knows what's liable to fall through that ceiling, right? When people are up on the roof. I'm just saying. But doesn't require the hard hat when you're doing residential. So again, the comment was made in there. And again, he does have them in his other videos, I think, or some point. But I never wore a hard hat during residential at all. I mean, it's residential. But anyway, and OSHA generally doesn't get involved in residential wiring. So it doesn't become an issue until they start doing multifamily. and then you're doing big projects, multi-story, multi-family, obviously then OSHA will be involved in. And yeah, there's going to be the safety guy walking around at that point, right? I guarantee you there's no safety guy on this simple residential project right here. It's just a single family dwelling application. Any thoughts on that, Jay? You guys wear their hard hat every time?
No, so we don't wear hard hats unless it's required. There was a time where we did the track homes with a certain developer who required us to wear hard hats on the job site. So we did then, but for the most part, the only difference that we would do that he's not doing is we would require pants and then some type of composite toe shoe or boot. It doesn't really matter because some of the guys found that they make composite toe or steel toe shoes,
Mm-hmm.
and I don't mind that as either one, boot or the shoe, just as long as it can withstand something falling on it and protect you. Because I have to have workman comp on these guys, and I want them to
Sure.
make sure that they're safe at all times.
Yeah, so again, that's a decision. A great point in the chat. Love the points that are coming out in the chat. So in this case, a lot's going to have to do with your owner, the owner of the electrical contractor. And he might be his own, doing his own work for his company, and he can do whatever he wants. Wears the shorts and tennis shoes or whatever he wants to use. But like, for example, Jay's guys, they're going to have to wear the long pants. They're going to have to have composite toe shoes. I would prefer they wear a company logoed shirt. That's just me on my jobs. That's why I made sure they all had plenty of t-shirts. One of the questions in the comment is, and I think Jay brought this up to me in one point. Yay, JR, but probably not going to be something I worry about on a residential. I don't know anybody that wears that stuff on a residential. Maybe the glasses, definitely, but nothing to do with the vests and all that stuff. Hearing protection, no, wouldn't require that on a residential job either. Again, remember, we got to draw the difference. Residential, a single family, electrician versus commercial. I have wired thousands of homes. I know electricians who have wired them. I did it for many, many years. We don't wear all that stuff. We do wear a protective eyewear because we're drilling in the toes, but we don't wear vests, that type of stuff that we would typically wear on a commercial project, that type of thing. We wouldn't do it. It doesn't hurt. You can do it, but we wouldn't typically do that. Another question came up, Jay. You asked me this one time. The apron is just a kind of typical Lowe's or Home Depot apron, 2-pocket apron. I did it like him. I did not wear my tool belt when I'm roughing in. I had a little small pouch that had my side cutters, diagonals, my wiggy screwdriver, and I had my hammer, and all of that right there in one little pouch that I had on a belt. And in the front, I had the apron like this. And again, I would have staples in the front. So I would just fill up my pouch with staples. So as I'm going around, I would staple up as I go. Now, when we got bigger, I would be pulling the cable and somebody else would be stapling behind me. But when it was just me and a helper doing something, and I would, once I pulled it, I would staple it up, or it would get stapled up as they were cutting in the box or something like that. But a lot of stuff we'll pull around the room just like him. And it's not stapled until you come back to cut it in, that type of thing. Is that kind of what y'all do? Do y'all wear your full tool belt and everything with all these tools that you won't be using during a rough-in? I can only see the stretch marks and the people getting, weighed down and getting tired over a simple rough-in. What do you think?
I mean, I just think as the guys go from that apprentice to licensed guy, or that little period of time, and even for myself, who I've been in a residential for 7 years now, I'm always trying to find something easier, quicker, better, faster. So whether that's putting on an apron and also maybe like one of those wrist magnets to put staples on, just little simple tricks like that. But to answer your question, I go in pretty thin. I don't wear tool belts on each side. I wear a little, I call it my like inspector's pouch. It's like a 8 tool pouch. I usually carry my linemen's, my strippers, my 11-in-1, and I don't know, probably that's about it, with a roll of tape. And I usually have my hammer on my pants, like kind of, well, he has a belt loop. It looks like my pants I have are kind of like carpenter pants. So I just throw the hammer in there, whatever. And then the tape measure, and I go. But guys still do wear all their tools, so
Yeah.
it just depends on. I don't really require it. I just don't like guys going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. If you need 5 tools on you, then carry all 5 of those tools.
Yeah,
on
there's
you.
not a whole lot you need for this stage that he's doing, right? You just need to be able to put in staples, be able to strip cable. You need to be able to screwdriver knock out the holes into the box. Certain types of things. But you're right. Now, one of the things that I do recommend is you can get these liners that go in buckets, and it holds the tools all the way around it. And so it has so you can line up that thing and keep it on site right there, so you're not having to go a long way. But I only carry what's essential around.
Yep.
And again, don't weigh you down. Again, you're not going to think about that so much when you're in your 20s and your 30s, but trust me, you getting into the 40s, you get into your early 50s, boy, it'll add up on you. So, again, take care of yourself. But again, those are all different things to think about. In his case, he's got the bare minimum, and I was no different than this. Okay. So again, only other thing as far as wearing it is, guys, I always like to have look professional. And, even if I'm the only person in the room, it's like that old saying, what would you do when somebody's not watching? Well, hopefully my guys would do the same thing they're doing if somebody was watching. Okay. Not everybody's the same, but that's what I expected of my company. And then people would say, well, I just wouldn't work for you. That's fine. Go start your own company. But this is his policy and everything. But yeah, my pouch, I used to carry one just like that. Used to pick them up at Lowe's in the front, and it would be just loaded with staples. And I'd be just stapling all over the place. I didn't have that fancy stapler like you want, from the Milwaukee. That type of thing.
Those are nice.
They are nice. But again, you got to drag that thing around. So, I mean, just it's so much quicker to put a staple, boom, boom, you're done. All right. Let's get back into his review here.
Because this is where my home run is, and I'm just going to work my way around and put power into everything. So just going through the walls, next set.
Holes are nice and level. He did a good job. No strap. No, he just, did a good job drilling. And you know what, Jay? You know what? I remember watching one of your videos. He took a lesson out of the Grundberg Basement King 101. Is he didn't put his holes too low. He didn't put his holes too high. He pulled it through there at a comfortable. He wasn't bending over. He didn't go too low, and that type of thing. Also, the holes very even. Now, some people have said snap a chalk line. You know what? As you get better, you don't need to snap a chalk line. You get kind of an idea of where to hold it, where to lock your arms, elbow against you, whatever, and drill your holes. So they're going to be pretty straight, but you want them to be straight, because if they start going all over the place, you don't really think about it, then you could be ripped the jacket on the NMB possibly when you're trying to pull it, things like that. So technique so far, drilling those holes look good. I have no problem with the way he did that. You see any problem with that? Is that textbook out of the Basement King 101?
Yeah, when you watch him pull the cable across, it's right at a waist level, and that's kind of where we put the drill at, right? Just on your hip. Put the drill on your hip and just go. As far as the chalk line goes, I think that's a waste of time. It's the same as kind of like if you set up a laser. I think that's a waste. Maybe you could set up a laser other than a chalk line if you want to be quicker.
At the end of the day, I mean, how much training does it take for you to drill straight holes? Right?
And that's...
But maybe you do it one time for an apprentice, or maybe you do it to show the importance of straight line to when you're teaching, because we're always teaching, right?
Right.
So, but I mean, ultimately, I don't think in my career, and I've been wiring for over 30 years and for a good 20 years focused on, electrical work. I don't think I ever did a laser, and I don't think I ever did a chalk line for it. I had sticks that we would do the marking and everything, and I would teach the guys how to do it. But on me, I had the Milwaukee with the extension. So I had a corded right angle with an extension and a little auger bit, 6-inch auger on the end. Basically, if you held it the right way, locked your arms and held it a certain way, you could go through those stuff and they would all be straight. Okay. Maybe a little deviation, but again, if you're going straight through and you're standing in the middle of your studs, then it wouldn't be a problem. But I'm not knocking anybody that wants to do a laser or chalk. That's fine, and it can make for a nice even installation. But I think over time, you get good at it, and I know all of you out there do. But again, there are people that will do the level, the chalk. There will be other things. There will be people that actually have a stick and mark it on every stud for their apprentice or something to kind of give them an idea of what they're going for, or give them that feeling with the drill on what it needs to be. You know what I'm saying? That type of thing. But again, I just never did it because again, it eats time up for me, and I know what I wanted, and I know how to stay straight. And when I'm drilling, I look at the one hole and I go to the next stud. I just eyeball the hole that was previously done, and you get a feel. You get a feel for it. And he did good. He did nice, level, straight lines everywhere. Okay. But again, to each his own. But definitely, if you're training somebody and you want them to get the feeling of what it is, then I can see where somebody might do something like that. If you start stringing up lines, man, you're stringing up lines everywhere in a residential house. Probably, I probably wouldn't do that. All right, let's do it. Now, Jay, he's doing something that I didn't do. I am not a fan of sticking the cable in the box so that I can strip it out later. I'm not a fan of that. I'm a fan of leaving it out until I'm ready to cut it in. And then I would run the cable along the side of the stud, and I move it down to the box, and I hold it across the back of the box so I can show that it's at least a half inch or more past the knockout, which is going to, be the same as you're going to get when you go in the box. You just go into the back of the box. And then I'd pick it up, and then I strip it. I strip all my sheathing off, take the paper off, and then I put mine in the box, and then I put my staple on it. In the rough end stage like this, I just wrap it down and under, and then tuck it back into the box just temporarily to hold it in place until I'm ready to do my cutting in, right? So I'm not a big fan of it, and I'll tell you why. I've been to plenty of jobs. Obviously, people know I work for a wire and cable manufacturer as well, so I've been to many jobs where the people go into those boxes and try to strip that sheathing off, and they end up nicking the conductors in there and nicking the sheathing, and the insulation on the conductors, exposing it. And of course, when they stuff everything back in the box, they wonder why they have a fault or something that takes place, or if it makes contact with the equipment ground, then they have a ground fault, and they wonder, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? It's because now I went on one project where they were stripping them in the box like this, and they were literally butchering the insulated conductors inside the back of the box. And remember, when you're jamming everything back in there, the whole purpose of the insulation is to maintain the integrity of the conductive material. So we have an insulating material in between the conductive material and anything that can come in contact with it. Obviously, it works for heat and keeps the heat in because you're going to have current, so you're going to have heat. That's why it has a temperature rating. But at the end of the day, if you cut it, you damage it, then we can't guarantee what could happen, right? So
yeah.
Any thoughts on how y'all do it, Jay? I know you might do it like this or not. I don't know.
I don't know if some guys do it like this. I never really trained them to put it in and then pull it back out. If you're going to put it in, I would train them kind of like what he's doing now, but put it to the face of the box and maybe go about halfway down and take your NMB strippers and put that little, marking on it, just that little slice in there. And what I'm talking about on the strippers, it has like a spot for 14.2 and 12.2. And you put the NMB right in that little slot, and you press hard on your cutters, and it scores that sheathing, and then I'd land it in the box. And then you can either do the makeup then, or you can come back and do the makeup. But as far as putting it in and then trying to pull it back out, a lot of times it just gets stuck on that inside cable clamp, and it's a booger to kind of get back out if you're doing the method that he's doing. Or maybe he's doing the knife down the center. I don't know what he's doing yet. I haven't seen it, so
yeah,
kind of curious to see.
I don't know, but like I said, we have a bunch of people, a bunch of comments in the chat, but I can tell you right now, I've witnessed it when the insulation is damaged. And if I'm worried about that, yeah, I'm worried because it arcs and I get caught out there and they want to blame the manufacturer for the wire. And I'm the one that finds the nicks and finds the issues when they jam stuff back in the box. And you know what? If you cut insulation off a conductor, there is no approved method to put insulation back on. You got to replace it. You can fix sheathing. You cannot fix insulation. Electrical tape doesn't qualify as a replacement for insulation. As far as manufacturer's warranty, from us, it's gone. You've got no warranty. Now, when it comes to stripping it out, again, there's many ways to do it. I use a knife, and there's a lot of job sites that don't let you use knives. A lot of people use the Klein where you clip it and it strips the sheathing the sheathing right off. I never use those. Basically, I used a knife. I'd go in, I'd support it, and I barrel it into the middle where the equipment ground is, and then I just support the cable on my finger, and I slowly bring it down, pull it back, and cut everything off. When I put it in the box, the conductors and the equipment ground are ready to go, right? And that's my cut-in. And I do that at the time I'm going to make up the box. So many ways to do it. I just don't like when they put the cables inside the box and then try to strip everything off from inside the box. But everybody to their own. I'm not saying one way is better than the other. Do what you feel like you got to do. But this is Jay and Paul's commentary. And that is one thing that I don't think is the best way to do it. But hey, go for it. A question that got asked in the chat, Jay, was about the paper. There's paper that's around the equipment ground, and then there's paper that wrapped all the way around the whole assembly in NMB. The paper separates the two insulated conductors so that there is an actual barrier. It's a fire retardant paper, and it actually separates the bare from any of the insulated conductors. And again, ultimately, it kind of protects the insulated conductors from the hard surface of the bare conductor during the production. All this is required by UL 719. But that is one of the reasons, as it does act as a protective barrier. If you do have any damage to a conductor's insulation, again, through the production process, the arcing from the equipment ground over to an insulated conductor that might have a spot on it that's weak, again, it's being already made, it's being installed. You don't really know. The manufacturers test it. But if something were to get out, the chances of an arc penetrating through that paper, the tests that I've done, it took as much as 4,000 to 5,000 volts to get through it. Okay, so a very high level. And of course, you don't have to worry about the amps because that would clear the breaker. So in our testing, that paper does add some protection between the insulated conductors and the bare equipment ground that's in there. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of one of those things. But again, that's just telling you from the manufacturer's perspective. And again, I get a lot of calls on this, and ultimately this is how I get manufacturers out of trouble when I was with NEMA. If you don't do it right, or I find there's something that was done incorrectly or not a recommended practice, I exploit it. And then if it goes to court, who do you think is going to win? An expert that also is an electrician who can explain why so-and-so did it incorrectly in their opinion. It's easy to sway a jury. Just remember that. Okay, all you got to do is watch recent trials. All right, so Jay, I'm sorry to interrupt you. What were you going to say?
It's kind of crazy that us out in the field, we don't think of it that way, right? We don't just call up the manufacturer and ask them why that paper's down the center, but it does make sense now. It's more for the production line so that the product gets to you, the installer, or myself, the installer, properly.
Yeah.
So it's crazy how it goes that way.
And another reason for us to do the paper and everything, if everybody ever asks about the paper around NMB, non-metallic sheath cable, is it also that the sheathing is extruded on top of these conductors. And if you didn't have that paper in there or some other process, then it would cause the actual sheathing to sag down in the interstices between the actual conductors. So the paper also gives the body to the actual product to keep it uniformed. Now, you can make paperless, right? And we have UFB, but that is an engulfed product. So a lot of people don't make paperless NMB. You can make it. UL 719 would permit it. The problem is the product ends up coming out looking like crap. So that's why we all use paper. It also adds uniformity to everything. Plus, it's flame retardant. That's a benefit as well in that product. Okay. Anyway, yeah. So just the little things to think about. All right, you ready to keep getting it? Let's do it.
And if I do this right and I do it clean, every box, unless it has to do with three-ways, we'll talk about three-ways a little bit later, but every box should have 2 wires in it, except for the end of the circuit. That'll just be one wire. So I'm going to start this next pull from this receptacle to that one in the hole, just because I know it's going to be smooth. But if it was a long pull, a lot of times I'll just start it in the bed, come back, guess it, cut it, and then push it down the hole.
If you're still trying to figure
Yeah,
out
so hold on.
from you over the internet,
Make a comment on there. Hold on, let me pause him. Yeah, so you're going to see that a lot of people do this, but in this series he does it too. And again, I get to the point where I just have to let them go, because you know what? People say smoke detectors all the time when there's smoke alarms, and at some point you're like, okay. It's like when people want to say subby bruh all the time, and you know that there's no such thing as a sub panel.
Subby, bruh.
Yeah. But somebody just loves it. It's a remote distribution panel, but you just got to at some point you just got to let it go and say, okay, I get what you're saying. So as you point out, he keeps saying wires, but we know he's pulling a cable, but at some point you got to let it go. But for me, I hear it all the time, and I'm just like you. I want to say it all the time. I want to go, dude, that's a cable. That's cable. That's cable. You know what I mean? But
right.
At this point, what are we at, part 6? So I think he's done that.
Yeah.
Just about every video. he calls it wire, and again, it's a cable assembly, but we get him. But yeah, it's always one of those things.
Could you imagine the episode would be like how to cable a house instead of how to wire a house? Our episode would be like how to cable a house with NMB. And all that stuff. We'd be so specific on ours where he's like, I'm just wiring this darn thing, dude. Just give me a break.
Yeah. It's also a good point to bring up. Even though, Jay, that he's doing his runs horizontal through the framing members, there's a lot of homes that we used to do back in when I was back in Virginia with my brother. We did a lot of the homes by simply, you had to drill all those studs, right? Well, there was occasions where underneath, let's say the floor joists were going that way and there was a cavity there. There's a lot of occasions where we would take that box and drill straight down, and then we would go over to the next box and drill straight down, and then we would walk it on the surface, the length we need, add the extra to get up to the boxes, and then we would poke it down and leave it down, knowing that we're going to go down and over and up. So there's a lot of applications where you literally can save a lot of drilling by going down and up, In this case, if you had a bunch of windows on a wall and you got to drill through all those studs and jacks and all that it might be easier just to go down, go over, and come back up, depending on, again, how the floor joist is run or whatnot. In this case, it might even be easier and save you time to pop up and go through the attic or something like that, right? So just keep those. There's more than one way to run your cable. But usually when we're just looping around the room, we're going to drill those studs. But just remember, there's options: drilling down, going underneath, going up, those type of things. Now, be careful going down, because you could have a jurisdiction, for example, where you drill down into the crawl space and it's considered by some, they will argue whether it's a wet location or not. And then, of course, N and B can't be in a wet location. So then you get to argue with the inspector about what your crawl space is, right? So you don't want to get in that argument, but just things to think about. You should know your area, right? That type of thing. So, and in the comments, I guess, what are we? Let's see. Oh yeah, people calling plugs and outlets and not receptacles. Yeah,
they do that all the time.
All the time. What he's installing that cable in, that is a receptacle outlet. Receptacle devices are what go in the receptacle outlet. Lighting outlets are the boxes that luminaires will go on to. And yeah, so at this point we use terminologies back and forth, but usually electricians know what somebody's talking about. So again, I don't want to be that guy that always points that stuff out, because again, I know what they're talking about, but I get it. Totally get what you're saying. All right.
After a while of doing this, you start to figure out what works for you.
See, all those studs he would have had to go around. I'll point it out. See all these studs right here. If he was going to go around this, he would have to go through here 2, drill through this 3, drill through these 4 right here. So if the receptacle's over here, it might be just as easy to go up and over and down, use a little more cable, but it might save you a lot of time. Or he could have drilled straight down right here, and he could have popped up over here if there's a receptacle over here. So depending on the way the floor joists are underneath, again, that's the beautiful thing, Jay, about the residential, is that it's constantly changing directions, right? You can go above, you can below, you get to be the one. That's what I loved about residential. Commercial, it's kind of do it by the plan. Residential, just go with the feeling. It's up to you. You get the freedom to lay it out and everything like that. And also, it's not going to be long before he gets some of those shavings from that wood down in those shoes where he's not wearing any socks. And boy, that makes for a nasty day. But any thought on those things about drilling, Jay? You agree that there's different ways that you could run your cables?
Yeah, I think you just go with what best fits that certain situation. All situations are a little different. In that instance, I'd probably go above like he's doing, or like you recommended, going down if there is a basement or crawl space below that. But if that's just a single ranch style slab on grade, house, you're probably not going to be able to go under. So you either go around or you go up and over. If he goes up and over like he's doing, I don't really like going through the hole that he's going through first and then pulling all that cable through that first initial hole and then over.
Yeah, I go to the back side and come up and let it lay over top in order to give me some structure to the pull rather than go through the hole. So yeah, he could have gone through and up because he can always come back and then poke it down through the hole, that type of thing.
Poke it down, yeah. Use gravity, right, to your advantage. Don't try to force something, and because then if you get about 3/4 of the way to the other side of the room,
you're yanking it,
and something gets snagged, and then you're going to damage the cable, and so. Just different tricks, but as far as going around, it looks like underneath that window, there's those king studs. It looks like 4 or 5 of them, packs on each side. Yeah, that's a booger. I don't want to drill through that, so I'd go above.
Yeah, and if you're doing it from that corner over there and you're using a cordless, just look at that one stud that's right real close to these 3. And unless you have a long extension bit, you can't get your drill over here. If you get here, you might not make it all the way through, depending on the bit you're using. So. Yeah, he's saying
the angle you'd have to go at, you'd probably end up outside by the time you got to that last stud to the right. Yeah. You'd be going at such a weird angle that you poke outside. Oops.
And here's a tip for you folks. If you drill a hole and it's less than 1.25 inches from the edge of the framing member, and again, that doesn't matter which side. I love everybody seems to think it's the side you're working on. But if I'm drilling through a bunch of studs and it comes out in the back and it's less than 1.25 inches from the back side of that back stud, then I'm going to have to try to get a plate back there. Maybe people think you don't, but that's the place that the siding folks are going to drive a screw through it. I'm just saying the 1.25 rule applies to both sides of the framing members. Okay, most people don't think about that when they're drilling those. And with that many studs, there's a chance that he would need one on that back side. How do you do that? Those that ask, take the nail plate, knock the points down, and stick it back there, and then use your clines and try to hammer it in there so that it's in the back side. Because usually that last stud is the one where you're going to be just shy of 1.25 inches. If you don't do that, then you got to go outside and cut that siding or sheathing or OSB or whatever and try to get a plate on it. It applies to both sides. A lot of people think, again, only one side, right? Both sides. I have a question it asks, says, Paul, is there any manufacturing reason for not putting THHN, THW, and I think you meant THWN -2, because there is no dual rated THHN, THHW. Listed on individual wire conductors within NMB. Is it actually not rated or just not labeled? Is it not the same insulation? Okay, so non-metallic sheath cable can either be TW or it can be the equivalent to THHN. Remember, it's a dry location product. So we don't even have to get into THWN-2. It's a dry location product. So it can be either TW, even though W stands for wet, but that's a thicker. TW is a much thicker insulation. So it can be TW or equivalent to THHN. Most of the manufacturers will choose for the equivalent to THHN. We'll use a THHN product in there. We just won't put the nylon on it because, again, why pay for it when you don't need it? And most of the time when you test THHN in the UL standard, UL 83, we have to take off the nylon anyway. So we test it that way. Now, the other reason is we don't put markings on it And so because we don't put markings on the individual conductors typically in an NMB, that's why you can't strip NMB out and sleeve it in something as individual conductors. You might as well just run the whole cable assembly inside of the raceway because you can't strip it out. Unlike MC cable, where we do put the markings on it, so you could use a transition fitting. You can't do that with NMB. Now, that doesn't mean a manufacturer can't make an NMB and inside of it put a THHN and THWN-2, just knowing that you're not going to use the THWN-2 aspect of it. We could do that if we wanted. And if we were in a pinch, we certainly could do it. It doesn't hurt anything. But most manufacturers aren't going to do it. And I'll tell you another reason why. Ink. It costs our company hundreds of thousands of dollars just for the inks that we print on our conductors. So any opportunity to not print them on a conductor, a manufacturer is going to embrace that. And so that's another reason to do it. Okay. And since we know that you're not supposed to use a product for a certain application anyway, there's no sense in putting any markings on it and putting it in there because you want to use NMB as a whole, as a cable assembly, not the individual conductors and things like that, right? So that's kind of why, kind of a 30,000 foot view of why the manufacturers do that. All we have to do is make sure that the conductors that we put in our NMB is equivalent, and that is testing wise, equivalent to a THHN, and we're good to go. We don't have to mark it like THHN. We just have to make sure that in our testing, it's equivalent and passes all of the UL 2556 requirements, UL 83 requirements, as well as the UL 719 requirements for non-metallic sheath cable. If we do that, that's why your insulated conductors inside of an NMB are not marked. So hopefully you got all that. Okay, so let's go on and go into a little more. We got a long way to go on this one. We're only 5 minutes in, got a lot of commentary. It's a 29-minute video. So we might be here until next New Year's.
Alright, and the reason I went up and over for this right here is because I didn't want to drill this crazy corner and underneath this window, so I just kept it easy on myself. I'd rather get on the ladder and pull it overhead. I'd rather get on the ladder and pull it overhead than come forward work for myself. I don't mind climbing up and down a ladder, and if you do this type of work, you're going to be on a ladder a lot, so I mean, nice workout on. Alright, we had some technical difficulties, but anyways.
Been there, done that. All right.
So we're just connecting power.
Okay, so Jay is, let's think of Jay as a frugal owner of a company. And so Jay, you need to have 6 inches of free conductor that comes out of your box. In this case, it looks like he's got about 18 inches. I don't have anything wrong with that. Again, you got to use the cable. You got to use the cable. It's not a problem. There are people out there that will freak out. They'll say this is 8 inches too long. And my response to that would be, well, a lot of people don't like to use the device as their splice point. In other words, you've got your 2 cables coming in right there, and you got 2 blacks, 2 whites, and 2 equipment grounds coming in, and you got to make all that up. So maybe he's leaving enough there so that if he has to make any pigtails, then he's got enough of it right there. So I'll give him benefit of the doubt. But do you ever have a conversation with your folks about how much, as far as waste goes and that type of thing? I mean, not that I'm saying this is wasteful, obviously not. It's fine. But do you have those? Is that something that you have to think about as a contractor?
I don't know if it's something that I really nail home as far as just getting the cable there and making sure you have enough to be able to get the the 6 inches that you need. We don't really pigtail. We actually use the device for an in and out. So the only thing that we're really making that connection is with the two equipment grounds, and usually we just use a little barrel crimp and crimp the two together, cut off the second one that we don't need for that installation where he's at with a single gang box, knowing it's only going to go to a duplex receptacle. But as far as the wire length, all the wire comes back to our shop anyways, and we recycle it and repurpose it for stuff back into the company, whether it's parties or stuff like that. So maybe those guys want to use 18 inches because they want a bigger party,
Right. Yeah.
I don't mind that though. I don't go through that. I think there's
Even
other
at the
battles.
price, even at the price of NMB today, because I've seen some of your posts about giving me a bunch of grief about the cost of NMB today.
All I post about is I just wish you could, you talk about being this big wig there, and running stuff in the codes and standard department, showing videos of you going up to your office and yours
right.
is 220, which
Enough
is
of that.
very
Enough of that. Enough of that. Let's move on. Next one. Let's go. All right, his sounds he messed up for the next 5 minutes, so we'll do our best to see what happens here. At least he told us, Jay.
All right, I had to raise these boxes up right here for the TV and the receptacle because there's some shit in the way. But but it doesn't really matter because they're still low enough to be, what's the word for common
denominator.
Huh?
What?
I forgot. So it doesn't matter if you start from that way and work your way this way or this way and work your way that way. We're just making sure all the boxes get connected. So everything has power. We're still doing receptacles.
All right, so let me make a comment, Jay. So what he was saying, let me translate their little moment there of unity between them two. These boxes are higher than what he normally would set, which is, again, he uses his hammer to set his boxes. If you need to see that, go back and watch the video 2, I think, or episode 2. That these are higher because of the plumbing in the way, right? Now, depending on the spacing and everything, obviously, it looks like the one on the left, he could have put it the normal height. But the one that's over the plumbing, he couldn't put it the normal height, right? So he wants them to be uniform, so he just brings them both up, right? Again, I think what he could have done if he wanted to keep everything the same height, that he probably could have moved the TV to the left of that one box there, or he could have put the TV to the right side over here where the on this side of the plumbing. Again, any TV that's going here, the cord is going to be able to reach the receptacle. That's easy because 6-foot cord. And obviously you can reach the coax or get to wherever it is, but it would have kept his uniformity in all the receptacles the same height. Here he's going to have 2 in the room that are a little higher than normal. Not a big deal, but for the OCD folks out there, those are, as you go around the room, those are going to be higher, and somebody will wonder why are those higher, that type of thing. For those that are OCD, but remember, as long as you meet your spacing, your 6-foot rule from the break in the floor line, and you can go up to 6 feet, put that receptacle, then you can go up to 12 feet to the next one. The TV one doesn't matter, although you want it to look uniform with everything else. Any thoughts on that, Jay? How would you have addressed this? Would you let these two be higher than everything else in the room, or would you just kind of have put this one down where it needs to be and then move the TV over here on the right or something like that? How would you address this?
Yeah, I would have done that just to keep them all at that low standard height.
Okay.
Or if I was required to, or if I had to keep them where those two are at, then I would have just adjusted all the other ones around the room to that same height.
Oh, so you would have taken that one room different than all the other rooms and just raise everything higher?
Yeah, just because then it's that everything in that room is consistent. At least the room might be different, but at least you're not going into a room and 2 boxes are different. They're all the same. So.
Yeah, so me, that's like that's like the albatross. For me, I'm just moving that box in the middle to the right, and if that's the TV one, I'm moving it. I really don't care where I put the TV as long as it's right there on that wall there. But I'm going to try to keep consistency. Everybody's different, and there's different ways, and that's the beautiful thing about it. It's different ways to do it, different ways to address it, no doubt.
Probably could have put it lower than the plumbing and just altered the other ones a little lower too. I mean, it's half a dozen one, half a dozen the other. Do you want to go a little bit higher or lower? I think if you went lower, it wouldn't have mattered either. But
Yep. Well, for me, I'm moving this one over here, unless that's
Yep.
the receptacle one. And if it is, then I make this the receptacle one, and that would have been within the distance. And I would move the TV over here,
just
putting a
drop them
TV
down.
putting a TV, no, proper height. Because there's nothing on this stud to put it down low to normal height, and I would have put it on this stud normal height, and you would have
Gotcha.
wouldn't have known any difference in the room. That's how I would have addressed it. Everybody's different, but that's how I would have addressed it. All right.
General purpose. That's what I was thinking.
Good. Good.
General purpose
You
receptacle.
could just like
General purpose brand circuit, right?
Low enough to be a general purpose receptacle. Now, when you have receptacles that are up high, like a lot of people want to hang TVs and stuff, that's not within code. So you have to still add a receptacle down low because up high receptacles are not considered general purpose.
Okay, let's correct him a little bit, Jay, on this. The term general purpose plays no role in the concept here. It's a branch circuit. Yes, it is a general purpose branch circuit because it's serving regular receptacle outlets in a room. But what he's saying is you can't put them up high. Now, if you go into the code 210.52a, you're going to notice that when you're looking at 210.52 general, that the receptacle that serves that space, that 6 foot, 12 foot rule, as we say, you'll see there's a list there in 210.52. And it says that any receptacle outlet that is above 5.5 feet cannot qualify as the receptacle to serve the wall space requirement. So he's partially right. But if you put 5.5 feet, Jay, that's pretty good up the wall. So if you put a receptacle up at 4.5 feet or 5 feet, you're still going to meet the wall spacing requirement, and the TV is going to hide that receptacle. So, but if you were to put it up higher than that, then he's absolutely right. You can have it there, right? But it can't take the place of the receptacles that you got to have that are meeting the wall space requirements. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I usually try to, if I'm putting them up high, I try to talk to homeowners into doing one higher and low as well, just because then if they want to do a TV shelf down low and put like Xboxes in it or PlayStations, then they can have a receptacle down low to plug into. But if they're only putting it up high, then yeah, and I'm trying to serve double duty where I'm serving the TV high and my wall space, then I'll make sure that it's lower than 5.5 feet.
Excellent. And so he made a statement. He was kind of right, but he said it code you couldn't have the general purpose up there. So it's really the receptacle outlet requirements in 210.52 that say to meet that space that it can't be higher than 5.5 feet. So that's what he was really. I think that's what our electrician's trying to say. Okay.
So, here we go. There's none of those in this house, so. Little long.
That's right. At this point, that extra wire that he had on the cable he had, that's a Starbucks coffee. I'm just saying, he just cost yourself a Starbucks. The cost of NMB today.
I don't like to mark many wires, and the way that I do this is I have a certain place for everything. Now, this is the switch box for the fan light in this bedroom. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep all my powers in my switch box on the inside to the stud. And then that way I can just come to it and I know that it's power when I go to cut it in.
So basically what he's doing is it's called stacking his boxes so that he knows that his power, he knows traditionally when he's doing something that his power is the one that's closest to the stud, that's in the knockout, that's closest to. So, and me, he doesn't like to mark me. I always marked because either my helper was coming behind me trimming out or my brother. And so when I put the power in and I would wrap it around the box because I wouldn't, remember, I don't put my sheathing in. I wrap it around and tuck it in until it come back and make it up later. On the end of my N and B, I took my side cutters and I make a bunch of little lines right at the end, or just right at the end, a bunch of little hash marks. And that lets you know that's the power. Okay. I used to have travelers. I'd put cut angles on the end of my cable. Different things that me and my brother would communicate. You know, it's kind of, you get into this thing with your helpers. I'm sure you've had it, Jay, where you just get into this communication with the person that you're used to working with, and they can read your system based on what's in your head. Now, when it came to the leg up to a luminaire, then that's coming in. I would take the end and I would bend a tight loop in it, just a kind of like a Q-tip, just a Q, and I would squeeze it. So at the end of it, it had a quick turn on it. Yeah, you're going to cut that off at the end anyway. But when you come to make up that box, I can look right at it and I can see the hashes tell me this is the hot. Any travelers tell me by the cut angles at the end, cut to a point. I can tell if it's the leg up to a luminaire because it has a loop on the end of it, you know, and then I can start cutting the box in. Different people have different ways to do it, but that's kind of this little hidden, I don't know, what is this, communication between the other electricians and helpers on a job site. Once you get used to each other, your thoughts, how do you identify?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good, rule of thumb for you and your guys. We normally, if you're not going to strip it out right then and there after you've brought everything in, then we just take a Sharpie and write P for power, S/L for switch leg. If there's two switch legs like he has or two switches, we'd probably just put on one S/L light, S/L receptacle, just in case he's doing a half hot receptacle. So I would always just pull out my Sharpie and mark on it. And usually I'd mark it either on the sheathing coming into the box or even on the outside of the box as it comes down a little further out of the box. That way, if you did take the sheathing off quick, you still had a reference point to go back to.
Yeah. And Adam's got a question here, but Adam, I can't understand your question. It's kind of fragmented. Give it another shot and retype it in and I'll do my best to answer it, and Jay will. O brings up a point, or not O, I guess Adam bring up another point, is that on that box, he could have put a 2-gang box there, and you could put a divider in there, and you could have low voltage on one side and your power on the other, your cable on one side. If you use a 2-gang and you have the type of box that lets you have a divider in it, then you could have done it both right there too. But that would have kind of been awkward, you know, seeing a 2-gang there, you know. But I mean, there's so many ways you could have done it, right? So yeah, there's a million ways to skin the cat in this game, and that's the great thing about residential. Like you said earlier, Paul, you said, the great thing is you can do it one way and watch someone else do it a different way and go, you know what, that's actually probably a better way, quicker way. Yeah.
I'm going to try that next time. And then all of a sudden you're stealing someone else's steez or the way they work it. And all of a sudden that guy goes back to you and goes, hey man, you got a lot quicker. How'd you do that? Well, I kind of picked up some things from you and this guy over here. So we're always trying to grow. And that's the great thing about residential and just being an electrician in general is really trying to grow and get better. So.
Yeah. Now JR asks, do we have any tips for protecting your cabling when the drywallers come through? Yeah.
Keep it in the middle of the stud, man.
Keep it in the middle of the stud. No, I don't know a whole lot what you can do with that. I can tell you when you cut it in, get used to really being neat when you're making up your joints and everything so that you can, I've seen some pictures. Some people do some really nice making up their joints, pushing the conductors over to the side, getting it so that you can lay it back in the box. Okay. You know what? The best thing you can do is to try as an electrician to push those conductors back as far as you can in the box. Right? Keep it at least an inch or so away from the perimeter, because you know what the sheetrocker is going to do, right? They're going to use a roto zip. They're going to go in there. They're going to find the outside edge. They're going to come to the box, and then they're going to pop inside, and they're going to go zip, 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 and run around it. So anything that's within that inch of the edge of that box is going to tear up your insulation, tear up your conductor. Okay. So my only advice, push it back there if you
everything
can.
back.
Get used to training your wires back into the box as best you can. Keep it back. It'll serve you, serve you well. That's the only other thing. Again, keep your cables in the middle of the studs. Make sure you nail plate where you need to nail plate. Even if you think you can slip one by an inspector, dude, nail plate when you think you got a nail plate. Don't even risk it. They're cheap. But that's it. The next question is, how do you keep the sheetrock mud out of your box? And, good luck with that. I think Jay has a product that actually is designed to do that, but I don't think we would use that on a big scale. That's for remodel and stuff. Here, I wouldn't put, I know some electricians, Jay, that actually get their helper at the end of the project to crumble up newspaper and jam it in their boxes because they know that
take like cardboard and cut out a piece of cardboard, like a square piece, and kind of
I'm not
push
gonna
it
do
in
that.
as well.
I'm not gonna do that. There's probably 60 or 70 boxes in this freaking house.
Yeah,
I'm not cutting cardboard, but I can give my helper a bunch of old newspapers or whatever and say, okay, this is apprentice helper 101. I need you to go around and stuff all these boxes for me because we know who the mudder is, and the mudder is going to be a nasty guy. So, I mean, everybody's different, but that's the only tips, JR, I could give you on that. Tuck it back, stay in the middle of the studs, use nail plates when you can, and push them back as far as you can back in that box. That's about all I got.
Yeah, and I think when you're making up 2 gang, 3 gang, 4 gangs, anything larger than a single gang, any conductors that you're going to push back that aren't making up to the device, meaning like let's say you have 4 neutrals coming into it and all you need is 2 coming off, whatever it is, you got a pigtail,
right?
Take those conductors and train them, like you said, take them to one corner or one side of the box and then go diagonal with them or go left and right instead of always vertical and pushing out that little footprint of that device. There's different ways of doing it, and then that's all you do. Like for his instance, you'd have the EGC, the switch loop, and the hot for each one of those switches, and those wires those wires would just be the only ones that's kind of closer to the front. All that other stuff, all that other makeup is pushed to the back, going diagonal or left and right, opposed to always going up and down. So I just think there's a craft in how you train your wires and how you do your makeup so that it's just less likely to get hit. But if you got a drywall going through that's just going balls to the wall with it, he's more likely he's going to hit him,
I'm going to tell you, Jay, in all the homes that I've ever did, I did not have but a handful of cases where the sheetrockers nicked my wire.
Same.
So it might sound like it happens all the time, but it's because I was trained early on to train my wires into the box and get them back and push everything back in there. One thing you'll notice, if you can't get your wires in the box, you better start looking at a couple things, right? You better look at box fill. You might want to also look and see if you've got too much conductor. Remember, again, 6 inches from the point it enters into the box, okay, that we want to have that. Maybe you've got too much wire, okay? Maybe you got too much for the box. And so if that's a point and they nick something, then, you probably got some extra wire or something like that. As long as it's in the box, you can splice it and make something work, right? But train it back in there. But no, JR, that's never a reason for me to leave it in there. And I've never known anybody that leaves the NMB in a box with the sheathing on it all the way through the rough end stage and through the sheetrock stage and all that. Because usually as an inspector, I want to see your equipment grounds made up. So if I come back on and you got to remember, when do they come out to the job site? Most of the time. So electrical inspectors will come out and look at your rough end, right? And then they won't come back again until it's finished, right? Cover plates are on the devices. So as an electrical inspector for years, I want to see your equipment grounds made up. I want to see all of your pigtails that are made up or necessary. I want to see all that. I want to make sure all that. And I can't do that if I just leave the sheathing on it in the box and let them do that, because inspectors aren't going to come out there for more than 2 or 3 visits manual for the rough end in the final. And again, or you're going to be paying for it, or you failed an inspection and they got to come out. So that's just the reason I never, ever left the sheathing on any cable in a box like that. And I'll put it to you this way. You try to tuck all of that back in the box with the sheathing on it, it just gives more for that roto zip to eat up. So I'd rather just cut it in and get my stuff back in there. You know what I'm saying? I just rather get it in there. And I did not have that big of an issue with it. But like David says pancake boxes, again, play havoc with it. Yeah, because they're so shallow anyway that you start pushing them back in there and they come in there. And, you know, I don't know that I've ever met a sheetrocker that truly gives a darn about our wires. You know, it's all about the money. It's all about getting those holes cut and getting it all done. So we beat this thing to death, but trim it out and train them back into the back of the box. All right, let's go on. All right, so it's buffering. So that means that here at the Abernathy household studio, the kid is streaming probably Call of Duty. I'm just saying. All right, so let's go. As they didn't even measure that out, Jay. He's just like, okay, I'll cut it.
Well, see, last time you asked me if there's too much. Okay, 16 inches, 14 inches, 12 inches, whatever. But what he did from receptacle box to receptacle, that's too much. Where he could have just easily have pulled a little bit back. That I would be like, come on, guys, let's be realistic here, right? I mean, come on, let's kind of clean that up. Where the switch is at,
this
maybe
one could
he's
have
gonna
been.
have to.
He could have been real accurate with this one. I mean, it looks like he's got 2 feet hanging out that switch, though.
Well, I don't know
we're being
if the
picky.
switch, if he's doing it because he's going to pigtail. But again, on the device boxes down low, the receptacle outlets, we use the pass-through. We use the device as a pass-through. So for us, that's just a little too long for me, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay, we're being nitpicky on him. But again, you're thinking from an owner's perspective, and we're paying for every piece of that cable. And then the electrician's thinking, dude, that tight wad owner, I get it. But when you got to write the check, you'll get it. Okay? But again, Jay's, you know how Jay is. Jay's just being Jay. He's a nitpicky guy. I'm just saying. All right, let's go.
Put this Hall receptacle on with it.
Sorry, just like a
Okay, so some people ask that. Absolutely, the hall receptacle can be on with the bedroom. That is not a problem. Remember the rules in the code. If your hallway is 10 feet or more, you have to have a receptacle outlet in the hallway. If it's a 4-foot hallway, doesn't require a receptacle outlet. Okay, if it's a 30-foot hallway and there's no break in the hallway, okay, that breaks the floor line, then you only need one in there. So again, that's all in the code. 210.52H, I believe. We have to go check again. But at the end of the day, only need one. And so the other thing that people tend to get screwed up with is, let's say I'm entering the bedroom, Jay, and I go into this bedroom and it's got this little 2-foot, 3-foot, it appears to be a hallway. Once I go through the threshold into the bedroom, people think that's a hallway. That is part of the bedroom. So the wall space measurement starts from the break in the floor line of the doorway. That is not a hallway. Now, I didn't look and see what this was, but I used to do that little trick for inspectors back in Harrisonburg. We do, because did a lot of their educational training and stuff. I would have my guys say, maybe we had a bedroom that had entryways into the bedroom that looked like a hallway. It could have been 4 or 5 feet. And I said, don't put a receptacle in there. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, let's see if they realize that that's not a hallway. That's part of the room, because you went past the threshold of the bedroom and you still need to follow the 6-foot, 12-foot rule. And you would be surprised how many times that it passed, and then I would catch them and I would say, ho, 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 Johnny, or whoever it was. I'd say, you might have missed something. He goes, what do you mean? What do you mean, Paul? Y'all guys did great work as they always do. Hey, and I'd go, no, you missed something. Let's go inside. So I was always doing that, but I had a different relationship with them than most people have. And I would walk them up there and I'd say, no, you got to have receptacles in here. This is not a hallway. This is part of the bedroom. And an effort was to make them better as well. My guys were already ready to put the receptacle in. The only reason they didn't is because I said, don't do it and let's see, if the inspection or not, that type of thing. It's not something you can do all the time because again, you're get behind, but every now and then I would do that little thing for the inspector and it was part of an educational thing. I enjoyed doing it. And again, it also boosted my relationship with all the inspectors. They knew we were going to learn something. We weren't there to just, talk smack to them. We were trying to teach them something. So. Now his looks like that is a true hallway because there's the switches right at the entry. So, but it doesn't look like that hallway was 10 foot. So probably didn't need the receptacle outlet, but you know what? Never hurts to add one. Can always do more. Okay. Can always do more. Go above the code. All right. We got to add here. We got to add.
Create a website quickly and easily.
All right. So we'll let that ad go. Got to pay the bills, Jay. He's got to pay his bills. So I got to have the ads. Oh, something to mention real quick for all of you guys. He's pulling this cable across the attic. Be very conscious of where your scuttle holes are, where your access holes are. Again, because there's rules obviously for that above in the attic. And again, you gotta remember how you route your cables. So I know we do it. We run them up in the attic and we pull them all over the place. But we have to be very careful. And remember, those cables that go above, that go from, let's say, that one he did earlier where he went above and pulled it across, you still going to have to secure it. And with NMB, it's every 4.5 feet. So just because it's laying on top of a truss or whatnot, yeah, it's supported. But the code says in 334.30 that it also has to be secured. And that's every 4.5 feet. So make sure you're doing that you get up there. I used to, as an inspector, when I go to a project, and when I came out there, I was a supervisor. Then I'd love to make surprise visits, and I would come with my little stick, and yeah, you can imagine, Jay. And I'd go up in there, and immediately I'd go up to the top and work my way down. I would go up there, and I would take my stick, and I would push those wires. Cables that are running. See, I'm even doing it. Those cables that run through the attic. And if they moved, then the reason I did that first is because in the area that I was at, that was very common for them not to do it. So that gives them time to fix those things while I'm moving down. And my last thing was my outside walk around so that when I'm all done, I'm already outside, I'm at the vehicle, and then I can write up their inspection report, and then I'm out of there. Okay, so there was a way that I did it, and I'd start from the top and go down, that type of thing. But everybody's different. But after a while, when you get the kind of inspection load that my guys would have, and you have to come up with your way of doing things, that type of thing. So remember, it's still got to be secured, even though you might think it's supported. Woo! Pull that back.
I have a little bit extra in this box because I'm going to end up stapling. When I get both wires down here, I'm going to end up stapling a couple here and a couple there because I have this box. And I want to stay on the bed and use some wires that are going to get ran to this.
Okay. He's adding a little extra for his routing. Okay.
And it doesn't matter how you do this, as long as everything is getting power. And so that's all the power for this room. Jump in the circuit. And then I went to that hall receptacle and I came back in for here. So now I'm going to go to the other room and I'm going to take it from that switch box, which is the closest to this, and I'm going to connect that, and then I'm going to start looping out that bedroom with that bathroom.
Again, the biggest nightmare of an electrician is to forget to feed something after it's been sheetrocked. God, it's got to be your worst nightmare ever to think about it. Now, if it's on that floor and you got an attic above, you can probably get back to it and, as long as nobody knows you messed up. But at the end of the day, making sure you identify where your home run is and making sure before you finish that you have made sure that you've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's, and everything is connected together on that intended branch circuit that you're running. And don't need any nightmares to come up. Make sure you power it. It'd be embarrassing when you come back for the final and they turn power on, getting temp power, and all of a sudden the whole circuit's dead, and you're like, what happened? Now, yeah, it could be because the plumbers or mechanical guys cut your cable, but more than likely, you forgot to feed something. And maybe in his case, he forgot to run that one from the bedroom receptacle over to from the switch over to the other switch, which is feeding that room. And then all of a sudden, somebody forgets to do it. And that's what happens, Jay, when you're an electrician out there and you give a task to, say, a helper or an apprentice who might not have the experience you have. And then all of a sudden you assume that they're going to connect all those things together. And that's why I never really gave that task to somebody. I let them do the rooms and I gave them their room, but I always would go back over it and make sure that everything is tied together. You know, what about you?
We kind of have a little bit of a different system where we label our home run box coming in. So let's say that switch box was the home run. I would put, 14/2 home run, bedroom 1. And then I'd put a 1 up above that. And then I'd go to the receptacle outlet, put 2, 3, 4. And then I'd get to, let's say, the last box. Let's say it's 8 or 10, whatever. And I'd put EOC, kind of like
End
what
of
you
line?
said earlier,
End
end
of
of
circuit?
circuit.
Mhm.
And then that kind of tells you, a lot of times if I'm doing, let's say outlet 1 or outlet 2, or I have both of them, I'll do outlet 1 in like red Sharpie, I'll do outlet 2 in blue Sharpie. So I'm trying to limit any type of
Dude,
issues in the long run.
are we picturing Jay running around with this little pocket protector with all these different color Sharpies in it? Dude, talk about a residential
it's a fanny
nerd.
pack, actually, man.
You got
I
a
got one of
fanny?
those- Yeah, I got one of those fanny packs that
It's got
zips
all these,
up.
you can picture it now. He's got all these Sharpies in here and he's writing everything. Like, I think what it was when Jay was younger, he really loved to draw and color things with crayons. And so
Yeah.
when he became an electrician, he just kind of stepped up and started using Sharpies and things like that.
That's right. I don't get too crazy. Usually in basements, we don't have too many home runs, other than, your typical bedrooms and maybe wet bars, but we usually do lighting 1, lighting 2, outlet 1, outlet 2, bedrooms, bathroom. But yeah, we like to just identify each box as a number, and then we put EOC on the end of that. And a good journeyman, I can't watch all my guys, so
Yeah.
a good residential wireman of mine would go back and kind of check every box to make sure that they're done right.
So JR makes a good point, and I can imagine a lot of them don't do this. And I used to do this, but now it should be even easier and a no-brainer because of the cost. The storage is so cheap. Is that taking pictures before you leave and just keeping them, and because now you can Dropbox, you whatever, you keep them. Take pictures of the rooms just quickly, all the walls and everywhere that shows the routing of your cables, because you never know when they want to come back and add something and you want to know where stuff is in the wall. It wouldn't hurt. I'm not saying you have to, but I can tell you the first 2 homes that I wired of my own personal homes that I built, I did all, a lot of the stuff inside of it. My brother did a lot of the carpentry work in it. And we took pictures of where everything was, just so when we were to go back and add something or do something, we had documentation for it. In fact, I think I used a video camera way back then instead of picture. I just video camered everything and we kept it. Again, not saying you got to do that, because there's a lot of homes that obviously I didn't do that. But again, if you've got if you got a nice camera, you guys got it, phones today, snap some pictures, and then, keep them in a folder somewhere in the cloud. And, and another neat touch might be is to make your company stand out over the others is after you rough it in, after you do everything, provide a video library on maybe a USB and give it to the owner, give it to the customer. Say, here's pictures of where your cables are in your walls in case you ever need to go into a wall for whatever reason. And, what a nice little touch that could be, So, yeah. All right. Always looking for reasons to stand out, Jay. To be heads above the competition. All right.
I just wear my Seahawks stuff.
Do you? Well,
Stand
see,
out.
well, then we would. No wonder. Okay, never mind. I'm not gonna say it. Whew, that recess is close to that wall, isn't it? I guess because it's got the return right there. So anyway. Whew. I guess it's the same reason he wants a little slack.
If it's easy to go ahead and pull the switch leg because you're already in there, my advice is just to go ahead and skip it, because you want to make sure that everything has power before you start doing anything else. You want to keep your mind on the task at hand, because if you start getting too far ahead of yourself, then you might end up losing what you're doing.
Yeah, so good advice for him. He's saying, look, I'm focused on making sure that all these rooms and these outlets are all connected together. I'm not worrying about the legs that are going up right now to the luminaire or three ways. At this point, I'm making sure that everything has power. Then he'll focus on running up to the lighting outlets and in the three ways where necessary and all that. Again, as an electrician, we take that for granted, but he's kind of saying, keep focused, you know?
Yeah, and you think he says this because he's probably done it before, right? Or one of his guys has done it, kind of like what you said, when the sheetrock goes up, or the drywall and stuff, then you have to come back and this box doesn't have power. Oh crap, how are we gonna get power to it? Now we got to do sheetrock damage. Now we got to do all this stuff that we could have prevented if we would have just stayed the course by jumping every box with the power. So I do like what he's doing, and again, I think it's because of experience.
Yeah, and he's probably, like you said, he's been there, done that, and made the mistake. So he wants to stay focused. Okay. A lot of times we can get ADD, and we can be trying to do a million things. And then last thing you want to get, what if you just forgot that 6 to 10 foot piece of cable from that 2-gang box over to the other bedroom's 2-gang box to bring power? What if that's the only thing you forgot? And now of course we can fix this because it's an attic. I can drop something down the wall and drop it down, and we electricians, man. We're electricians. We're also, in some cases, magicians. So we can make it happen, but do you want to? I don't want to. I don't want to have to come back and do that or explain to somebody, oops, I forgot that 10-foot piece between this box and that box that completes my circuit. Okay. So he's obviously been there, done that.
All right, this is the switch box, so we're making sure that we're staying closest to the stud in that spot. It's the next thing in line.
It's a good time to talk about boxes real quick. 2-gang boxes have an internal clamp designed to hold the cable, right? So that NMB there would have to be secured up to 12 inches away. Whereas all of those single gang boxes that are down, that he's actually knocking out and pushing it in, then he needs to secure that cable within 8 inches. Okay. So again, good point to focus on all that. Again, we cover that in previous units. We even give code references for those that are just like the code references at nausea. But at the end of the day, just keep that in mind. But there are built-in clamps here, and not to say there aren't single gang boxes that do have built-in internal retention clamps that are designed into it. There are, but a lot of the blue ones like these simply have the knockout in the back. But the 2 gangs, 3 gangs, 4 gangs, they're going to have the retention. That's why he's having a bit of a time getting it in there, because it will hold it pretty darn tight. Okay, so there you go.
I kind of messed up this end trying to pull it out, so I'm just going to clip it off so I don't have a hard time taking the sheathing off when I go cut in.
I could have clipped off this much, not
All
that
right,
much.
3
Just
gang box here, still staying on the inside. Now some inspectors want to give you a hard time about stressing these tabs. My inspector doesn't care. And then also,
all right, let me talk what he's talking about. If you look in that box, you'll see the light of day to the back of it. He has pulled that cable so tight from that box that now the retention clamp is not retenching anymore. It's not putting any tension on the cable, right? When you do that, what he's talking about is now that cable is no longer secured to the box as it was intended. So this can affect, and some inspectors will say now, since it is not retaining that cable in the box as it's supposed to, now you're going to have to make sure that you secure it within 8 inches of that box, right? That's what some inspectors will say, okay? Now, the rule for securing within 8 inches is very specific to a size of box, though, Jay. It's a 2 1/4 by 4 inch box. So that's a simple nail up. So that exception to that rule is talking about that in 314. And I can't remember. My mind is probably blank on that right now. 314 dot, I'm thinking 17 or 19, but let me go look. And it's the exception. And so let me go look at it. So here is the exception under, that was all danced all around it. 314.17, and it looks like B2. It talks about non-metallic sheath cable used in a single gang box, and that is within 8 inches. So a lot of inspectors will get this confused. It's designed to secure it to the box. So typically some inspectors will give a hard time, but what we want to do is make sure that the inspector doesn't cite the exception in 314.17B2 exception, because that exception only applies to 2 1/4 by 4 inch boxes. Okay, so still secure it, but again, you'll have inspectors who will say that since the exception doesn't apply, that they're not actually securing the cable, and they might have an issue with the box in general, because what it says in 314.17B2, it says where cable assembly with non-metallic sheathing are used, the sheathing shall extend not less than 1/4 inch inside the box and beyond any cable clamp. Except as provided in 300.15c, the wire method, which is NMB, shall be secured to the box or conduit body. They're arguing now, if you pull that and you really stress that clamp, that it is no longer secured to the box anymore. So you're going to have to work with the inspector. Most inspectors will say, you know what? Some might even say replace the box. So in all fairness, the code is what it is. I don't really have that much of a problem with it, but here's how I get around that. If somebody came to me and I think that they did this, and I'm just giving you my opinion, even though the exception doesn't apply to this because this box is obviously bigger than what's in the exception, I might say, okay, just throw me a staple within 8 inches and we'll call it a day. I don't really worry about the fact that that clamp is now overstressed out. I'm not going to worry about it. But again, could an inspector say, you know what? That box has failed. Yank it off because you're not securing that cable to it. And if you argue the exception, it's not going to apply to this size box. So again, I can see where somebody might give somebody grief. Most inspectors are not. They got bigger fish to fry than that. You know, if you do this and you're worried about it, put a staple within 8 inches, hopefully, and it won't come up. Or here's my advice. Push the clamp back so that it at least appears that it's connected to the thing. And but obviously don't rip it all the way out. What are your thoughts on that, Jay?
Yeah, I think he's okay. Again, I think it's kind of based on the inspector's preference. I try not to pull him too hard. I try to let the cable kind of force them, force its way in there and kind of let them do what they're supposed to do.
They can be a bugger sometimes. So, anyway, there you go. It's my thoughts on that. Agree to disagree. You know what? Everybody's entitled to the opinion. So let's move on.
You can have 2 wires under one tab.
2 cables.
It's
right.
Not a big deal in the area that I'm at, but I have been in areas where they don't want more than 1 wire under each tab. And that's the same guys that are assholes about stressing the tabs. So, like I said, it doesn't matter, so I'm just going to keep rolling with it.
Hey, just because you get failed for something doesn't make you an a-hole. Okay? It just makes the guy or girl is enforcing the standard. That's it. You probably, what is that old saying? You get more with sugar, or you get more with honey than you do with vinegar. Probably not a good idea to refer to your inspectors in your area as a-holes. And then they ever come across your video, chances are your inspections might be a little bit more difficult. I'm just saying. You know what? Actually, as much as I used to help people, it took me a while to realize when I went on a couple job sites and everybody started saying the word punta, all of a sudden as I'm walking around, and I realized they were referring to me. I'm just saying. I've subsequently learned what the word punta means, but again, those were typically electricians that I didn't communicate with anyway because they didn't speak English. Trust me, their supervisor or the owner would never say that, but they didn't think I know what that was until I realized what it was, and then I made a comment to it, and that ended. I'm just saying. I wasn't a tough inspector, but I made you do it right. So, but I'm sure I was called many things. So, okay. Let's move on.
Next in line, we got a receptacle in this room, and I just got to connect the rest of these receptacles. All right, I'm not pulling this wire up tight because I know that I have to come in here soon, and I have to put a staple in here. So I'm just kind of leaving just a little bit of a bend.
But now we know why, Jay. And we know why he couldn't go under anywhere, because he's on slab on grade. So he's either going over or horizontal. He's obviously no going under. So
No going under.
Remember, in some houses you're on the second floor, you can go under, and it might save you a lot of time by going under.
Right here, I'm gonna pull it, and I'm not gonna pull it tight because I know that I'm gonna put a staple in there, and I usually do that within about 6 inches of the box.
So Jay, are you one of those guys who one of the methods that somebody would do here is I have seen where you would pull it past this box. That looks like a pretty easy corner to maneuver. One drill this way, one drill this way. Continue to pull it, drill those holes, and go around the room and pull it to the next one, so that right here, all you got to do is pull the slack so you can have a loop there, and then you can cut the loop again, pulling it straight around rather than cutting it and keep cutting it at every receptacle. You ever done that?
Yeah, I've done that in certain rooms that it just makes sense to do it. I don't know if you gain a lot other than having to go back to the reel and grabbing the wire again or the cable again and keep continuously doing that. I probably would say I move a little quicker than this guy though, but I think he's on camera, so he's obviously doing, his best to kind of teach us as he's going. But yeah, I've done that method.
Okay. Horatio says a lot of beer money there. A lot of scrap there, right?
Start my staple, and then I'm going to kind of pull it tight to that staple.
His holes are nice and even.
In
what
2022, for my case, it's not beer money this year. It's actually sparkling ice water money.
Like this right here. There's sparkling ice.
Just saying, bruh.
Okay, we'll see how long that New Year's resolution lasts. I've already busted one of mine already, and it's not even the second day of January, so I made it a long way. Okay, keep going. And I'm not going to say which one it is, but just keep going. He's definitely got that thing on a spinner because it's pulling off nice and even, so he's definitely got it on his spinner. Let me see, hold on. If he shows the other part of the room, I'm gonna make a comment. I'm gonna look behind him. Maybe let's see if he shows it. Maybe I'll reserve my comment. Oh, back up a little bit, girl, with the camera.
Can I do something real quick?
No, you can't, hun. Really?
Hey, them roofers don't care about no rain. They're still up there working.
There we go. Stop. So interesting here, Jay. See this receptacle right here, and then you got the receptacle right here that's stuck in a corner. Now, he probably could have gone out here and gone 6 feet from the entry and put this receptacle more in the center of the room. And then he could have gone 12 feet to this next one over here where he's at. I think that would have been within 12 feet. And he could have saved this receptacle right here and not needed it. Now, granted, it's spec, and more the merrier, right? But I hate receptacles stuck in corners if I can help it. I try to look at my spacing to keep it out a little bit. But again, just your thoughts on here. Would you have measured and tried to get this one, whatever the 6 feet was that would have gotten you out here, and then gone 12 to over here? Or would you have stuck that one over in the corner? It could have been on the drawing, and it could be what they want. But is this, I mean, I'm not being nitpicky, but what's your thought?
Yeah, I think if they paid for it, I'd put it there. If not, I'd kind of stick to the code. More in bedrooms, I put them in corners, kind of where the bed's gonna go. I see that kind of happening closer to corners, because then you want to be on the left and the right side of the actual bed itself. But other than that, I try to put the receptacles kind of center of the room or underneath the window, or right to left, so then they can charge their phones, you know.
Yep.
But yeah, if you could do that, save a box, heck yeah, save some money.
Yep. Unless, of course, it's in the drawing, and then, do as it is in the drawing. But, with residential, a lot of times there is no drawing. There is as built, you're doing it as you want to do it, as you're laying it out. So.
Will you wipe screen up? It's got water on it.
Yep.
Oh, the worries of production. All right. I will say this, Jay. I still think it's awesome that his girlfriend or wife or whatever is out there filming for him. And, I can remember back in the days, and you can too, where I was doing work at night, or I was doing side work, and my wife would be out there helping me, and, in this case, she's holding the camera, but my wife is actually helped me hang luminaires in a big room where it had a pit on it that was 18 feet down or whatnot. And I was long ladders, and she was up on scaffolding helping me. I mean, I remember working all day and then having to drag her out all through the middle of the night. Now, that's a woman that is going to be around, is one that's willing to sacrifice to get out there with you and pull the cable with you, hold your tools, hold something and help you out. I just remember those days where my wife actually helped me do that as a contractor.
Good old days, man.
Good old
Jalissa
days.
would, if I drill the holes, she would pull the cable and make up the boxes, and
That is awesome.
and then if I was doing the trim out, she would always start putting together the fixtures if they came from like IKEA, or she would start putting together like the ceiling fans and stuff like that for me to hang stuff. Because that takes a while. I mean, some of those ceiling fans take about 30 minutes to put together.
That is awesome. That's what you mean. Family that works together stays together until one of them gets ticked off and commits homicide. All right, let's move on. Ooh, it is a monsoon outside there, though.
I hardly see you right now.
I got two boxes here. One's gonna be for this TV wire, and the other one is a receptacle.
Now let's see if he drills these studs or goes above. Nice even, though. Everything's nice and even. He's doing a good job. I think we answered that question. He did. He's like, I ain't drilling all that. God, look at the top. There's no way you'd go across that. Nice big window. Makes sense. I think I'd do exactly what he's doing. Especially the day, Jay, when everybody's using the cordlesses and all that. And the
This wire that I pulled up above, it's scraping against some metal. So you want to pull it off of the metal and put a staple in it. And when you're stapling in the ceiling, you have to staple every 4 foot, and that's a rule to keep in mind whenever you're running the wire, because it's easy to add staples down the wall, but then when you go in to add staples in the ceiling, it starts to get a little tight, and it might be hard to work with.
all right.
So did I miss something? Did he say in the ceiling it's only 4 foot? Is that?
Yeah.
Did I miss
So
something?
Yeah, no, he says that it's code. Now, here's a funny thing about that statement. Let's be fair. If you secure it with a staple every 4 feet, you're code compliant. You're not wrong. But the code rule in 334.30 is that you're securing it and supporting it every 4.5 feet. Hey, but he's doing it every 4. I have no problem with that at all. You can do it every 3 feet, every 2 feet, every 1 foot, every 1 inch, whatever you want to do. That would look kind of funny. But again, he said it's code to be 4 feet. It's code compliant to do it at 4 feet. As long as you don't go more than 4.5 feet when it comes to non-metallic sheath cable. Again, 334.30, check it out. But again, so his statement is not incorrect, except for the fact that he kind of makes you think that if you go over 4 feet, that you would be non-compliant. But again, you could go up to 4.5 feet. So, right, good observation there, Jay. But he's okay with the 4. We're going to let him go. It's just not code to say 4, but 4 is code compliant.
Same thing with this side. I can see that the wire is hanging on a little bit of metal, so I'm going to go ahead and add a staple right here just to keep it off of it. And you want to stay off of anything metal, and that includes ductwork from HVAC.
Because they will cut it, buddy. And it's sharp, so... And I will keep this theme going, Jay. Here we are in part 6. At this stage, you'd have no problem hiring this guy. I mean, you know, doing a good job. What's your thoughts as an owner? If you had to hire somebody and this is their audition tape, you feel good about him so far?
Yeah,
Still?
I actually would. I'd bring him in and I'd kind of run him through our system and kind of how we do it. There's certain things that we would obviously do that he's not doing, and then there's other things that he probably does that we could learn from. So I think it's actually a win-win to hire this guy.
Sweet. All right. So far, we're good. We're he's still on the good side of working for Wired Up. All right. So let's go.
I wouldn't pay him for his wife to do a video though. That's for sure. I'm not saying she's doing a bad job, but I just wouldn't pay. He wouldn't be on the clock right here. He'd be doing a free Saturday right now for his YouTube channel.
Hey, dude, he's got 51,000 views. So hey, 1,000 likes. So
I need to pause it. I need to stop it.
let's give him a like. There we go. We gave him a like. So far, we like.
I'm sure there's probably like 60 maybe.
Just the fact that he's doing a video to help people out there, you got to give the kudos. When we come on and do a commentary, it's not to jab somebody down. It's to add additional content that we can. But I mean, we're very impressed with the guy and his work and everything like that. So we'll see if it keeps up. But again, we're here. And again, I'm very supportive of educators who put out product, but know that we're going to comment on things that are inaccurate. And that's the beauty of it. Okay.
Yeah. So no, he's doing great. Like I say, great video. His wife's doing great. If I'm the owner of the company, I'm not paying for him to shoot a video.
Dude, you gotta let that go, bro.
That's all I'm saying, bro. Unless I'm pulling in some of that money out of that 51.5K views.
You don't get. Trust me, you're not getting much. It's pennies, bro. Trust me. All right, let's go. Everybody wants to be YouTube famous. Hey, there's his spinner over there. So he's definitely working off a spinner. You could tell by how nice and neat the cable is.
this is the end of the circuit. And so we got power to everything so far, and now, like, I know that almost all of y'all are new to electrical, and
I'm brand new.
so I want to take you the steps to make sure that your work is correct. So let's go back to where our home run came in.
Okay.
This AI.
Just so you know that Jay would not pay you, young man, to go back and do a summary. Just so you know.
And let's make sure that everything is connected right now. So we got our home run coming in here.
This is good to do right here, though, if you are the electrician on the job.
Here, and we went over and we hit this one. Came out of there.
Only takes a second. Just do it.
Came out of there. We got our switch. Went to this hall receptacle. And then we went up and over and hit this other receptacle in this room. When we left that, we came back into the room and we put power to this, went up into the bathroom, then back, and we followed these receptacles in this room. And you want...
Real quick, let's talk about that. He said he hit the bathroom. Now remember, now because of how he's doing that, because that branch circuit is hitting that bathroom switch box, KJ, that tells us right there that he's going to have a separate 20 amp branch circuit that's coming to the actual bathroom circuit. Okay. I mean, we know it without question, because only way that you could power everything in the bathroom with a single 20 amp branch circuit is if you did everything in that bathroom. Okay. And in this case, he's bringing the switch to the switches in the bathroom. So he's going to do the lighting in the bathroom, that type of thing. So that tells us automatically that at some point we're going to see him run his home run, or run his line in order to be able to do the minimum of at least one 20 amp branch circuit for his bathroom. And it can't have anything else on it but that receptacle. Now, it could leave from that receptacle and go to a receptacle in another bathroom, right? All of that under 210.11, right? So at the end of the day, we know this by just seeing that. Now, the other observation I'll make, and somebody will say this, without a doubt, it always comes up, is they'll say, wait a minute, that looks like a freaking lot of outlet boxes on that one branch circuit, right? You got all of them in that room, so it's probably what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, probably 5 at least in that room. You got 5 in the other room. You got 1 in the hall. So that's 5, 10, 1 in the hall room. That's 11. You got that other room, 12. And we're not even counting yet the lighting outlets that obviously are going to be on that circuit. Now, the National Electrical Code does not tell us the maximum number of outlets, receptacle outlets that we can have. Now, it doesn't tell us the maximum number of lighting outlets either, but we know that the lighting outlets is going to have a fixed load on it, right? Or at least a potentially maximum load on it in wattage. And we can do Watt's law, and we can come up with what that amps is. So we have to be very careful. So if you're going to put a lot, now the receptacles don't really, how many receptacles do you use in your bedroom, Jay? Let me put you on the spot. So in your bedroom, you got receptacles around you. How many receptacles are you actually using? I can tell you mine. You tell me yours. I'll tell you mine. I'm using basically at any given time about 2 receptacles in my bedroom. One for the TV and then one for the clock beside the bed, or plug my charger in. But they're all not going. But at the end of the day, there's more than enough receptacle outlets in that room. So the code doesn't tell a maximum number. People want to assign 180 VA to these things like you do with commercial. And it's really not what you do here in residential. But there's a lot of stuff on this circuit. Now, what if he's got ceiling fans with the light kits on them and all those type of things? So as an electrician, you do have to think about all those things, right? In when you're doing it. So any thoughts on that, Jay?
I don't know, man. We usually keep it to roughly 8 to 10 receptacles a branch circuit for, on a 15 or 20.
Mm-hmm.
That's normally just our typical. Again,
Okay.
we do smaller size basements, and he's doing a whole house. But yeah, I mean, and then also in certain jurisdictions, they actually will require or have amendments that maybe they'll only allow you to have 10 receptacles on one circuit. So make sure you know where you're working at, and make sure you know their amendments, because their amendments will supersede what the code is in that jurisdiction.
Yeah. Yeah. So JR, you have to go back and watch the other series in order to see his kind of his sequence of how he wired things. But typically, we would typically, some people put the home runs in first and run them where they need to run. And some people will wire everything up and do their home runs last. Personally, I always did the rooms first before I did the home runs. I did the home runs last. For me, I always would mark where I want my home run to go, and I would mark that. And I would put a symbol on it at the beginning of where he started, and then I would do my home runs last. Everybody's different, but that's how I would do it. The key is that you know where you start and you know where your home runs got to be. That's the key. And so, and everybody does it a little different.
You want to go back and you want to make sure, because if you miss one of these jumpers and you finally make it to trim out and nobody caught it, it's going to be a problem. It's going to be a big problem. So missing a home run or missing a jumper is the biggest problem you can have when you're doing this.
Absolutely.
Right here we hit this one, and then this is our final one. This one right here is part of another circuit for the family room, so we're not even worried about that. But this is the end. This is bedroom 2, hall bath, and bedroom 3. Now we're going to pull the switch legs, and like I said before, I done pulled out some of that 14.3. And bedrooms, family room, back porch, if it's covered, and the water closet in the master bathroom usually gets 14.3 as a switch leg. That's because it gives you 2 options for, usually the red is the light and the black is the fan. It looks easier for me to pull this from the light, so I'm gonna start.
And actually, I do mine opposite of that. I use the black for the light and the red the fan, but to each his own. He must have made a mistake in that way they bought it up on the screen. So let's go back. See what he says.
And bedrooms, family room, back porch, if it's covered, and the water closet in the master bathroom usually gets 14.3 as a switch leg. That's because it gives you 2 options for, usually the red is the light and the black is the fan. It looks easier for me to pull this from the light, so I'm gonna start right here.
Oh, okay. He's just saying what he was bringing.
Okay, and this wire coming down.
We know it's a cable.
I have this first slot open, nothing's in it, but that is for a power wire. So we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna jump in with switch sequence. So coming into the room, this is gonna make a lot of sense later, like coming to a bathroom or coming to a kitchen switches. So this one right here is just gonna go in slot 2.
So I think what he means here, power, is that's his home run. And he's still got to bring his home run. So in his case, he didn't run the home runs first. So I would have marked on there with a big symbol that says home run or whatever. And that's where I'm going to go to. If you pull your home runs first, there you go. Now, the reason I say this, Jay, is because I think some of the other videos in this series might be a different house. If you think about it, I think that was a different layout. He's trying to show all the steps, but it might have been a different house. And that can happen. We get busy on a project and we got to get it done. And you're like, okay, I can pick up something at another house. I mean, what studs are studs, boxes are boxes. But in that video, I think he ran his home runs first. In this one, he's running his branch circuits around and he's going to run his home runs last. It doesn't really matter. 6 and a dozen, whatever the old saying is. But in 501, 6, what is the old saying? 6 and 1, half a dozen, whatever it is. Anyway, so in this case, as long as you mark it and you know where your home run's going to go, then it really doesn't matter, because at the end you can just go back and look and see where your home runs are going to be. Hey, whatever makes you feel comfortable, knock it out. I've done both ways, to be honest with you. But usually I like to do all of my wiring first and pull my home runs last. Make sure that everything's looped back to that box where my home run's going to go. Then my last stage is all I got to do is pull home runs back. That's all. Everybody's different.
And like without even looking at it, I know. Like when I come in here and I trim it out, like I know what this is. For 1, it's a 14.3. And for 2, I know it's a switch leg because it's not in that first slot.
Just
So
his way of doing it.
With the lights is I'll just put a staple in it and leave me a little bit extra to come back and finish it. Unless it's a round box, I'm not going to finish it.
let's talk about this for a second, Jay. Let's get our code books out here for a second. So he's using a pancake box up there. Would not be my choice. I would probably use a slip over fan box, plastic fan box, put it up there. I don't know where he's at in the country, all fairness. I don't know what code cycle they're on, all fairness, right? But I don't like the pancake box. I don't know what the cubic inch is. I know he's bringing a 14.3 in there. So again, we've got to worry about, box fill, which is 2.00 cubic inch for each conductor. So again, whatever that would be, I know that right now, if I've got a black, a white, a red, and an equipment ground, then I'm going to have 2, 4, 6, 8 cubic inches. So maybe that pancake box is more than adequate. That wouldn't be a problem. But if you look in your code book in 314.27, and we're going to look at C, depending on where this is in, now this looks like this is in one of the bedrooms because that's what he was working on. I want to read you what it says in the code. Okay. Now, C, it says boxes at ceiling suspended paddle fan outlets. And again, I'm in the 2020 code for those that are following along. It says outlet boxes or outlet box system used as the sole support of a ceiling suspended paddle fan shall be listed, shall be marked by their manufacturer as suitable for this purpose, and shall not support ceiling suspended paddle fans that weigh more than 70 pounds. Got it. Okay. So the manufacturers will stamp it. They'll let us know, blah, blah, blah. It says for outlet boxes or outlet box systems designed to support ceiling suspended paddle fans that weigh more than 35 pounds. Okay. So manufacturer has to mark it. Okay. And it's again for ceiling suspended paddle fans that weigh up to 70 pounds. They'll do all the marking. If they know that it's going to support a ceiling suspended paddle fan that's over 35 pounds, okay, then here's what it says. It says, again, for outlet boxes or outlet box systems designed to support ceiling suspended paddle fans that weigh more than 35 pounds, the required markings shall be including the maximum weight to be supported. So it's going to tell you the maximum weight, although at the end of the day, it's not to exceed 70 pounds. Now, when you go down under that, you see in the 2020 code, all that grayed out area. It says outlet boxes mounted in the ceiling in a habitable room, and that's a bedroom, so we can't argue habitable rooms. That is a habitable room where he's doing this. It says rooms of dwelling occupancies in a location acceptable for the installation of a ceiling suspended paddle fan shall comply with one of the following. Okay, so it's a habitable room, and it is obviously capable of acceptable to have a ceiling fan there. Your blades aren't going to hit the wall. It's right in the middle of the room. Okay. He has to comply with either one or number two. The first one he could do, and that pancake box, by the way, may be one that supports a fan. So I'm just using this as a not to critique him. It's for a lesson here. It's number one. It says listed for the sole support of a ceiling suspended paddle fan. So you could have a metal box up there. You could have one of those half moon boxes that go to the side that's designed to support ceiling fans. You could have the plastic ones in there that come with the two big screws that will drive up into the wood. That would support the structure of the ceiling. There's many options you have. Okay. So that would be number one. You could do that. Number two says, okay, for outlet boxes complying with the applicable requirements of 314.27. 314.27. So as long as you meet all the rules in there for the ceiling outlets in, let's say, 314.27A2, as long as you met all that, it says, and provided access to structural framing capable of supporting of the ceiling suspended paddle fan bracket or equivalent. Okay, so if in the 2020 code, if I have a box up there that would allow me to be able to, at a later date, get to the framing member to put a box in that actually could support the ceiling fan, then I'm okay to do that. That means that I cannot have a box there that is listed for support of a ceiling fan, provided that I can get to that framing members and I can get to it at a later date. Now, what's going to change in the later code is, in the 2023 code, is getting to that. I can't go through that box to get to that framing member. So it's going to push you in putting a box there that's designed to support a ceiling fan if it's in that type of location. Right now, you have options to do it later Okay. And so, you know, you have some other options there. So this might be just a pancake. Personally, I'm going to tell you, for the cost of that pancake, I'm going to buy, and I'm not pushing any company, I'm buying a slip over fan box. They're plastic. They go right over that 2x4 he's got right there. Put that thing up on there, and I'm already covered either way. I'm just saying. I don't see any reason to use a pancake box right here. I see no reason to use a pancake box. Like I said, unless that's all he had in the truck. Now, if you want more in depth of this discussion on all the rules that I just read and deeper, then go and watch, I believe it's episode 4, where we talk about all the boxes that he put in the ceiling, and we'll go. So make sure you go back and watch. I believe it's episode 4 for lighting outlets and things like that, and his recessed cans and all that stuff. So go check that out. But remember, I just wanted to highlight what the code says and the way it says it. You have 2 options, okay? And shall comply with one of the following, not both of them. So put a fan box in there that's designed or listed for sole support of a ceiling suspended panel fan, or use an outlet box that meets the rules in the code, again, as we show, of 314.27, and providing access to the structural framing capable of supporting of the ceiling suspended panel fan or equivalent. Right? So as long as you can get to it, pull that box out, put a new one in, get to the framing members, you're good to go. That's going to change in 2023, I believe. I got to check it because we just finished voting on everything. But right now, this allows you to be able to do something at a later date. Okay? And this might also change for the 2023. It's not so bad here because you got an attic. But the real issue is you can't go through the box to get to the framing members that I believe we're going into 2023. And we're going to do some episodes on that to kind of get deeper. But if this is a second floor and you're doing this in the mid floor, then you can't really get up into that framing member. And right now I can put a box and pull it down. And as long as I can get there, I can put one of those bracket styles in there. Well, in the 2023, that's even, I believe, is going to even change in the way you do that as well. And it's basically going to force you to put a listed fan box in everywhere that is capable of being able to put one in. Okay. So that's kind of a 30,000 foot view of where we're going in it. But my point is, I probably wouldn't use pancakes here. There's other options to use. What are your thoughts with all that, Jay? What do you think? And everybody, I went kind of deep in that. Sorry.
Yeah. I mean, I don't see anything wrong as long as he doesn't exceed the box fill with it, and he makes sure that he puts a proper ground screw in it. But like you said, I'd probably just do. I think on episode 4 we talked about how he puts up those wood braces as well, whereas then I would just put a spanner box that's rated for a ceiling fan if I knew a ceiling fan was going there.
Right.
But,
and in most bedrooms, personally, if you're good, here's the other thing. We already know that a ceiling fan's going there. Why do you think, Jay? Because he pulled a 14.3 up there.
right.
What do you need a 14.3 for? I'm just saying. So anyway, good thoughts.
I'm just gonna put a little staple in there and find a little bit extra.
Ooh.
And then that's it. I'm just gonna leave it hanging. I'll come back later and I'll put it in the grommet and ground it and everything, but that's for later. That's for another video. So since I'm already using 14.3, I'm gonna come back into this other room and I'm gonna do the same. And I'm gonna do the same thing.
I see the green screw up in there. I just, not a fan of the pancake boxes here. There's other options here that you could use. I know they make pancake fan boxes and all that. I get it, but just saying. It's just me, my opinion. Everybody's entitled.
And again, I'm going in the second slot from the stud because it's a switch leg. Cut off this crap. Now I'm gonna go up here and put a stick
I would have just pulled back a little
just
bit.
to hold it in place.
I wouldn't have cut off that. I mean, I'm like, I just pulled it back a little
I
bit.
think with lights you have to have a staple within 12 inches. I try to get it within 6.
Okay, so the rule is it's still NMB and you still follow the rules in 334.30. So the typical rule would be to secure it within 12 inches. If you secure it closer to the box, that's fine. No problem with that. Okay, just kind of, that's his rule. Just a lot of people throw, and this is why we created, Jay, the Fast Tracks Red program, the Fast Tracks Green, the Fast Track Black. Once you get your license, you don't need the black anymore. The black program is teaching you a 30,000 foot teach code. But once you move into like the Fast Tracks Red program, that's when you start learning all of the nuances, what he's doing, and all the ins and outs. And if he had gone through our Fast Tracks Red program, he would know those rules just like that. I'm just saying. Just saying. I should probably send him a free course because we're using his videos. Wouldn't that be the nice thing to do, Jay? You think he would? Think he would actually do the course? Probably not. All right.
No.
No.
And when you're stapling, you don't want to drive that staple in too tight, because if you do it too much, then that staple is going to pinch that wire so hard it's going to mess it up.
Yeah, and it's going to cause your AFCIs to function and cause problems, and you won't be able to find it. Remember, we're not driving a staple to embed the sheathing. We're driving a staple to just hold it in place. That's it. Okay? Don't keep driving that sucker away, and make sure you use the right staples for the right job. Okay? You have the little short staples, yet you're stacking cables, and you try to drive it because the staple won't bite into the stud. And it's because you're not using the right staple. If you're going to be stacking your cables, then you want to make sure you have a staple that is designed to be able to hold more than one cable. Okay? Common sense. Don't just keep driving it to hold it.
Okay. So in this bathroom, I was talking about switch sequences earlier. In a bathroom, your vanity light is always the first switch when you come into a room. So I'm coming into a room, I have my powers on the inside. So switch sequence, it's gonna go vanity, my tub light is gonna be my third slot, and then my fan is gonna be my fourth slot. And in doing this and putting them in the right order, I don't have to mark these wires. So when
This is David.
All right. Hello, David. So what he's doing is basically he's sequencing again. He knows what he wants, the vanity, maybe you use the slots for what's closest to the door, like the vanity right there. The one a little further down might be the light that's over the tub, recess can or whatever. So that's the next one. And then of course you might have the exhaust fan. That might be the next one. So he's sequencing it. You do what you want, but yeah, he's sequencing it so that he doesn't have to mark it. I think Jay's probably has his guys trained to just write on it with a Sharpie, because you know how things can happen when you start pulling them in a box and getting it messed up. In our case, we would put little notches on it and for different ones. And we had a method of what our notches meant, that type of thing. But everybody's different. But again, Sharpies are cheap, baby. Have them handy. Write it right on it, and you're good to go. A lot of people also, what one of the Jay said, is right there on the stud. I've seen people actually write it out right on the stud real quickly, so that when they're making it up, they can look right at the stud and it doesn't matter. They know which sequence to put things in, and they'll mark it on their cable itself. So anything that makes you feel comfortable to do it, once it's in that box, you can reroute it. You can move switches around, but it just makes it easier for him to sequence it at this stage. So again, nothing wrong with that. It means to me, Jay, that he's thinking about it. He's constantly thinking about, you know what I'm saying? How he's putting in his system.
Yeah, and that's, anything to kind of make the process go a little quicker, and there is method to his madness, and I have nothing wrong with that. If an apprentice came in and wired it separately or different than how he wanted it, like you said, you could just easily move those switch legs around and make them right. There really is no wrong way as long as you're doing it per code. But I do like his process of putting that switch loop in that footprint of that device. That's normally what I would do. So if it's a 3-gang and I had one side for power coming in closest to the stud, then yeah, that switch leg for the vanity would be within that footprint of that switch that it's going to. The next one would be within that footprint, and the third one would be within that footprint. So there's many different ways to do it.
Yeah. So Adam says he should be stripping it and putting it in there. I'm gonna be honest with you. I don't, Adam. I pull all of my cables and I wrap them around the box and put them in there because when I'm ready to strip, because to me it takes the same amount of time. If I'm gonna stop there and staple that and strip that in, I can be going and pulling in my cables, and then I can come back and staple and strip and put everything in. It's going to still consume the same amount of time, in my opinion, than to stop there and have to do that because I want to get everything pulled. Another reason is I train my helpers to do certain tasks. So I wanted to get as much of the cable pulled in as the master, right? And then they would come around and they would secure and put everything with the staples and everything. And so by the time I got stuff pulled, I'm working my way back around and I can start cutting in and with them and things like that. So again, there's no perfect way to do it, but you know, that's just the way that I would do it. And that's the way, you know, only difference between what I would do and what he's doing is I wouldn't put them in at this stage. Is I would, you know, have them there, all there marked up. So then I would cut them in at the same time and then make it up as I'm cutting it in. So it's different ways to do it.
Right there where they need to be, and I won't have to question it. Now, Lennar Home likes to use LEDs above the sinks, but
so he is doing for Lenora Homes. That is a big builder, and they do cookie cutter homes. I mean, they're sometimes big homes, but when you do one, you've done a million. In other words, right? You do this one, they'll be doing one down the street. It'll probably be the same model. You're doing everything again. So once you get used to it, you will know the product you need to order. You know how much cable you're going to need. You know what? Now you get to really streamline it. Jay would love these, right? So these, like, when you get a cookie cutter concept, then you really can hone down what your costs are and what your margins are and everything because you're just repeating it over and over and over again, right? Now, you go to a different subdivision, they might be doing different Lenore homes. But in this case, in a subdivision, they're probably all pretty similar to this, right?
this neighborhood wants the regular old-fashioned vanity lights. And they just go behind the sheetrock, and we'll end up cutting them out in the trim out with a cut-in box. But this is how you do this to make sure you got enough wire. So pull a bunch down, put your staple within 12 inches of the top plate.
Now he says that a lot, but that's no code rule. Okay, it's still securing and supporting every 4.5 feet. He just, in a lot of his videos, he says you have to secure within 12 inches of the top plate. In all fairness, that might be a jurisdictional rule that they have in his area. Okay, but it's not in the code that way.
Well, not all the time, but in this case, yeah. I'll put a staple right here. Run it through the hole. And put a light staple. Just gonna put a little bend in this. And then put a little bend right there. And then that way they have a little bit of extra to work with when they come in to do this in a trim out, and it's not gonna get pinched behind the sheetrock and the 2x4.
All right, so some jurisdictions have a problem with this. In commercial, it's very common for us to poke N and B out and we'll cut it in later. Some people don't. I've had jurisdictions who say, I want everything made up in a box. And again, you gotta have to work with your jurisdiction. If this is the end of the line like this, or this is just a switch leg and you know it's just gonna end in a box, then there's no joints to really be made up, so they don't get too, iffy on this. We do it all the time when we're poking down N and B for like fluorescents that are going to mount on the surface. But if the box is actually going to be cut into the sheetrock, a lot of inspectors want that to be cut in. I never really cared in it, but you got to remember that I'll never get to see what happens in that box as an inspector. All I'm going to see is the rough end where I see it like this, and then my final, I'm going to see the luminaire hanging. And that's all I'm going to see. So I don't know what's back there. I really don't. So a lot of inspectors will say, yeah, that's not going to work for me. So you'll need to figure out your vanity. You need to figure out where your luminaires are going to go and put it in a box. Again, I'm not here to tell you how your jurisdiction does it, but I'm just saying there's a lot of jurisdictions that would say, you know, I want to make sure you're compliant. And maybe it depends on how far along in your career that you pissed off the inspector that they end up going, yeah, it's a chance I don't trust you. So I want you to see put a box up there. Maybe his inspector, again, he calls him an a-hole. So maybe he is okay with it. Everywhere is different. Okay. Just remember that could come up, and some of them might want it in a junction box. Jay, have you done this right here? I usually leave, if I'm going to leave something in a wall like this is a one case where I am not skimpy on cable. I will go across there and leave a good amount, because that, even to me, looks like it might be iffy if you have to put a box in there and then pull it and still make sure you got the 6 inches from the box and make up everything, because all he did was put that one little loop. If there's 2 boxes over a double vanity or something, then it might be a little iffy. If that was a center stud on the center of the vanity, then if I could, I would put the box there. And if I looks like a plumbing line, it might run down the left side. So I might even use a fan box, one of those half mooners, and put it on one side of the stud so that it's in the middle. Or I might even, this is where it becomes important to know what the cabinet layout is, where the sink is, where the center line is, and all those type of things. But again, some people just leave the cable in there. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just leave the cable like that. Come back and trim it in.
Never any worries?
Not really. I mean, we usually take photos of the rough end, so we
There you
know
go.
where the cable is within that footprint. But we've just dealt with it to where, things happen with the vanity. Sometimes it has to shift a little bit, or
Sure.
whatever the case is. That way we're not stuck with something that's set in stone. We
There you
just
go.
leave the cable curled up in the stud joist, take a photo, and roll on.
All right, sweet. All right.
Okay, like I said, switch sequence. This one's going in slot 2 because it's the first light you want to switch when you come into the bathroom.
Adam says, "Oh God, Lemire."
Alright, and my next one's going to be this tub.
Okay, so here's a funny thing, Jay. So as much as everybody wants to call them, quote, fart fans, no, it's not technically designed to exhaust out your expression of personality. It's designed for the fact that you're going to have steam and hot and humidity and moisture, and it pulls it out of the room. If this was a wall that had a window, you wouldn't need an exhaust fan in it. But because this is an interior bathroom, you got to have an exhaust fan. And again, as a contractor, I was always the one that had to put in these, even though you'd think that it's the mechanical guy. And we used to argue and say why we had to keep the flex on hand, usually like a 4-inch flex or 3-inch flex or whatever it was. We always put these in. But at the end of the day, they're really to exhaust any steam or any moisture in there. Again, it will pull out smell, but at the end of the day, the intended purpose is to exhaust out that moisture and get it out of the room and things like that. So, but do your guys, Jay, do y'all install the exhaust fans?
No, we did when we did the track homes. I don't even think we installed them. I just think we provided them. But no, in the basements that we normally do, the mechanical guy will install them, and if we get in there before him, then we'll put a 1/2-inch grommet on the end of the cable and kind of curl it up in that general area and staple it, and hopefully he gets it into the exhaust fan for us. 2 things. There's nothing worse than talking with a PM project manager for a GC and a homeowner and calling it a fart fan. right? There's nothing more embarrassing and like unprofessional than to be, yeah, we're just gonna go ahead and hook up that fart fan right there and blah blah blah. You want to use the proper terminology in that case.
I can picture that in your case as the owner, and you're walking around with the customer, and you'll go, okay, we're going to this bathroom, and we're going to put a couple fart fans in there. Probably between the electricians, yeah, it's fine.
Yeah,
Between me and an owner, or
that's
me
an exhaust fan.
It's an exhaust fan. It's like,
Yeah,
we're in
not
that
slanging it up with
we're in
them.
that politically correct world. We're just still, even though everybody gets offended if you pass gas, at the end of the day, we're just going to say what it is. It's an exhaust fan.
Yeah, and then two, there's nothing worse than leaving that grommet on that switch leg, and the freaking HVAC guy doesn't land it in there.
Yeah.
Right. And so like,
Oh,
because the inspector comes in, he's like, oh yeah, that what's that wire or what's that cable got to go to? Well, it's gonna go to a future exhaust fan, but the darn HVAC guy isn't here. Okay, well we'll let that go. And then you come back and you do your trim, and your guys are like, dude, there's not a freaking wire inside this exhaust fan. Did we run it? Yeah, the switch loop's down at the switch box. I tell them, I just say, hey man, if you have to, just cut a 6-inch hole real quick, grab it, land it, put that 6-inch hole back, and they'll have to come back and mud it and tape it. It is
Yep.
what it is.
yeah. I
We
don't
gotta
have any
keep rolling.
problem cutting the sheetrock if necessary. If somebody's done something like that, Adam
What did
asked
he
you.
say?
Adam asked you a question. In reality, we talk about this actually in episode 5 when it talks about the home runs. So, Adam, I encourage you to go back and watch episode 5. There are occasions where we will, and Jay has said in that we will double up home runs if they're going to the same location. It does save time to do that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we'll
Yeah.
pull a 14-3 to a certain area and share the neutral in a residence if it's perfectly acceptable by code. We might do that as
Sure.
well. So yeah, there is those things, but go back and watch episode 5 where we talk about that.
Okay, now I'm gonna leave enough so I can get back into this light. So I'm just gonna cut it right here. We'll come back to that later on another time. And then my last switch leg in this bathroom is gonna be my bath fan.
Now, the only thing I'll caution folks, that is just an exhaust fan and he has a separate luminaire. Be very careful. You got all those branch circuits going on, and the owner surprises you with a nice fancy heat light combo unit in that bathroom. So now you've got what you thought was an exhaust fan, and now they come to you and say, hey, we got this nice Braun, it's a heater, it's a fan, it's a light combo. And now you're thinking, uh-oh, because again, now you got to worry about branch circuits and the loading on that branch circuit and the rules that are associated with that, because now you have heating load that's coming from that little strip heat that's inside of that bad boy, and it's gonna create problems with your load calculation now that you have all this stuff on it. So again, yeah, we hate surprises. Always hate surprises, but that's the surprise with a hairy homeowner who was out and they saw it and go, hey baby, wouldn't it be nice to have nice warm when you get out of the bathtub or out of the shower or something like that? We'll just throw this in. All of a sudden it shows up on the site and you, 1, don't have the right cable running up to it. 2, you didn't plan for that in your branch circuit setup. That would suck. Just saying. Ever happened to you, Jay? Anything like that?
Oh, all the time with the customer will come in and say that they want a certain thing after, like a combo heat lamp with a exhaust fan that requires a dedicated 20 amp per the manufacturer spec, and then you have to come back to them and say, well, one, we didn't plan for that, so we have the basic one in here, which we can keep that at the cost that you have it, or we can charge you $250 or whatever the cost is to install that one. And sometimes because of the cost of installing a new branch circuit to that area, they'll just go, no, you know what,
Forget it.
I'll go ahead
Okay.
and return this. I got it on sale, so I just figured it was something good. And that's kind of like I was telling you in on Electrify, is that going into the new year, I don't plan on installing any customer provided devices. I don't mind
That's so that
fixtures.
is that was one of your that was that a New Year's resolution? Or is that just a company moving
Well, I'm
forward?
sorry. That's more of a company. I shouldn't say New Year's. That's more of a company moving forward um, policy now, right? Because we can't warranty it. A lot of times, the homeowner, they're just homeowners. They don't really know how to look at the specs and make sure that everything's compatible with it. And whereas we know what's compatible, even if it's a fixture that you're providing, I know that my Switch is going to work with it,
Right.
and so that's just something we're not doing. And we're trying to um, mass produce to where we just get in and out and mainstream this stuff so simple. I got some new stuff coming up too on Kicking It with the King that you guys will be able to check out this year. But yeah, as far as the homeowner stuff, I don't make it a big deal. I just sometimes I might jack up the price double time because I've already been there in a situation like this. I've already ran the cable. Now I got to remove the cable that I've already ran to the exhaust fan, run a whole new circuit over, and so it just, again, it might not be worth it after it's all said and done for
Right.
them.
And for folks out there who want to see why this may be a problem, is all you got to do is to go to 210.23 and look at A2 and realize that once that's installed like that, let me read it to you. Utilization equipment fastened in place. It says the total rating of utilization equipment fastened in place other than luminaires shall not exceed 50% of the branch circuit's ampere rating where lighting units, cord and plug connected utilization equipment not fastened in place, or both are also supplied. So the ampacity that circuit is, and the actual utilization equipment that you're going to be installing, it's going to have a value on it, and you can't exceed, in this case, 50% of the branch circuit rating. So without knowing what the markings are on that heat light fan combo and how much it draws, can push you into needing a separate branch circuit for it. And like Jay says, you didn't plan for that. You didn't plan for the new home run. You didn't plan for all those things. So just like that, it can change. And you've got to think about how you're running it. Okay. All right, let's move on. We're almost there.
And that's going to be in this slot 4 right here. Alright, this hall is part of this circuit, but the light in this hall is actually coming to a box that's full of other switches for this family room. It's got a 3-way for this family room, it's got a 3-way for this kitchen, and I've already got to put power here anyway, so I don't want to add like any extra wire. So I'm just going to go ahead and add this one light on with either my family room or my kitchen, just so I don't have too many wires in a box and make it way too more complicated than it is. But I did put this plug on with it. And just look at this light. This light is stupid because it's returned. They want to put it center, and it's so big and stupid. They should have bumped it out somewhere else. But
All right, so that ends that one. So let's just come back to us on that. That kind of ends this review here for him. So wrapping it up again, that luminaire in that location, I agree. It's a dumb location. That return is massive in that area. So, but you do what you got to do, and it is what it is. Just better hope that it's not one of those big base type of luminaires that go in there. So in this case, it looks like it's just a small the recess. So, all right. So we ended this one. Showed, again, we were doing 2 bedrooms and his hallway. He showed the receptacle outlets and how he looped it. He showed how he went up to all of the lighting outlets. We gave our comments on that. Anything else, Jay, that you can think about so far that we can end on that he has done? I mean, not so bad, right?
No, all in all, he did really good. Again, I like the way teaching other guys out there. I think if you were a day one apprentice, first week apprentice, first month apprentice, you could actually, even 6 month apprentice, you could actually learn a lot from what he's telling you. You know,
Sure.
are all his statements accurate? No, not per se, but he's also doing things like we said when he says I'm stapling it within 4 foot. It's still within code. Now, obviously we know the exact code because we study it with the Fast Tracks program, and you obviously are just a code expert in yourself. You serve on 2 code making panels, but all in all, with just some minor little critiques here and there, he's rocking it. Again, he's a candidate for Wired Up in 2022. I just hope that he could just learn how to wear some pants and some steel toe boots. So,
well, what we will say is that you've got some snow going on up there. So he's based on the fact he likes to wear shorts, and that's fine. I'm not so sure he is actually going to run up in come up there to Colorado. Okay.
no, I think he's gonna stay wherever he's at. I don't even know where he's at, but
I don't even know where either. So, and maybe we'll learn in other episodes, because again, this was episode 6. We've got episode 7. I won't say what he's doing on that one, but I'm sure it's going to have something to do with that living room or that kitchen or whatnot. So we'll pick it up on that episode. Adam, I see you picked up some merchandise over on electricianpride.com. Appreciate it. Again, bunch of hoodies, t-shirts, hats, swag. Check it out. Again, if you want some swag. If you're interested in the Fast Tracks programs, the residential that goes even deeper in this type of topic, you can simply go to our website. You see right there on the screen, and just look for the red system, and that is the residential. And if you want to look at one of our tutorials, Jay, I don't even know if I've even told you about the tutorials been out yet, and you always get on me when you're the last to know, but we have a full tutorial on what you can expect to learn in the red program. Okay, and all the objectives are given, and so that is over. It's free. And you can go over and look at it on our website. You'll see on our websites, it'll have a thing on there that says tutorial. And you just click it and just go through the course. It's free. And you'll learn what's in the program to see if it's right for you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always holler out at us. But this is new stuff coming for 2022. Fast Tracks color system, new videos, hosting platforms that we're working on. A lot of stuff, and we're excited. We're going to continue to do these videos. Hopefully you got something out of it, and look forward to Kicking It with the King podcast. Have a couple episodes that are in the books that we're going to just do some editing on to get them polished up to launch. So what's your thoughts, Jay? Where are we at? How are you feeling? You feeling good about what we're doing?
Yep, I think we're doing great, man. Excited for 2022. Hopefully I can make sure that I'm here on every episode a little sooner than I was today. Obviously, you know, you're going into the 2022 new year. We're excited. We're happy. We're amped up. We're ready to go. I've already done 2 podcast episodes that, again, like you said, we just got to edit and get them over to you. Some reason with the darn snow, my internet is just lagging like crazy. So
is that
I gotta
what
get
it
that
is?
figured out. But
maybe it's not the snow. And maybe the Basement King hasn't paid his bill. Maybe you're behind on the bill. They're drawing it out. I'm just saying.
Yeah, might be, man. I don't know. We'll have to see. You know, we'll have to see. Trying to cut costs, and I guess cutting costs on the internet is probably a good way to start.
Yeah. So enough in Texas, if I was late, all of a sudden we'd be talking, and it would just go. It would just cut out. Paul didn't pay his bill, that type of thing. So,
right.
So anyway, all of you, thanks for joining us for the stream. Hopefully you learned something today and enjoyed this commentary. We will see you on the next episode where we will go into more residential wiring. And again, throughout 2022, we're going to be doing all kinds of commentary reviews, adding our insight, different applications, and also look for mini courses that are going to be coming out. And they're going to be available in both the mobile app for your phone as well as on the website. All are going to be coming out as well in 2022. So look for that as well. Till next time, folks, stay safe. God bless. listening to Electrify with your hosts Paul Abernathy and Jay, the Basement King Grundberg.